Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Studios. Today we are live at Radio Row at Super Bowl 58. And, of course, our coverage here is presented by the Nashville Sheriff. The Nashville Sheriff is hiring correctional officers. Call 615-862-8170 or email kirk.hopkins@nashvillesheriff.gov. 1 hour from now, Field Yates, ESPN, one of their main draft analysts. He's got a mock draft coming out next week. Field sits down with us. We will go over all of the draft talk and the Brock Bowers and the Joe Alts and the Roma Dunzes, and we'll go over all of that with Field in 1 hour. We got Warren Moon today on the program. Fitz today on the program, supposedly, if Charles Robinson doesn't screw us up with his taping time there, Ian. We've got all kinds of stuff coming up today as well. Yeah, you make of it what you will. So we're going to start on this. So yesterday, when I was around here, Radio Row, I was around here early in the morning, or I guess early in the morning Vegas time. And I saw Coach Brian Billick walking around, the old Ravens coach who gave me my first ever true heartbreak in 2000 when the Titans lost the divisional round playoff to the Ravens after having the number 1 seed. That was in my life. And I would say I've had a lot of heartbreak since then. But that moment was like the first moment of true heartbreak in my life. I know it's crazy and kind of sad, but it is the case. And so yesterday I saw Coach Billick walking around, and I said to, these people have handlers that put them where they're supposed to be. I said, hey, can we get them on in Nashville? They were like, what time? I was like, well, I want to get them on with our midday show because Derek Mason's a receiver, used to play for him, whatever. So he's like, yeah, let's do that. So Coach Billick went on yesterday. And Coach Billick was asked a question that more than 24 hours later, his answer to it is still sticking with me. And it is about trying to win the way that his Ravens won in 2000. Dominant defense, good running game, Hall of Fame left tackle, Hall of Fame tight end, mediocre passing game. Can you do that today in today's game? Here's what Coach Billick said.
And Coach, I want to ask you today, some of that formula you just said was so successful for you, and you had a series of quarterbacks just looking through the years, and you didn't have the superstar, but you guys won anyway. Is it harder to win like that now in today's NFL in your mind?
I think you don't necessarily have to have a Hall of Famer, but you better have a guy. I mean, there are two types of teams in the NFL. One's with a quarterback and one's without. And if you don't have one, you better be in the process of finding it. Because at the end of the day, that is going to be the difference maker. You got to do a lot of other things. I get that. It doesn't mean you can't win with defense or run the ball. We're seeing Kansas City transform itself a little bit this year to where they're with Pacheco and they're running the ball more physical and they're adapting to that. But at the end of the day, if you're going to win it all, you better have that guy. And it doesn't have to be necessarily a Brady or a Manning. It doesn't have to be a future Hall of Famer, but it's got to be a guy that in the big moments can make those plays.
And the more I've thought about that today, the more I'm like, that's what Will Levis has to be. Being at the Super Bowl, I cannot tell you guys how incredibly jealous, and it brings me back to the jealousy that I had last year when I was here. I remember seeing a large banner at Radio Row, and it had Jalen Hurts, and I forget who else on it, and it had Mahomes, and I think Juju Smith-Schuster on it, which I found to be odd. And now I'm looking at the giant banner, and it's got Brock Purdy and Deebo Samuel on it, and Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes. And again, I'm jealous. I'm jealous of the fact that, last night I went out with my old boss, and we were sitting there talking about how he owns the Louisville station, but he also owns the Kansas City station, and he's from Kansas City, and just how fortunate they are. They're always in this game. In fact, I was joking around. I introduced him to Jimmy Wyatt last night, and I told him, I said, my old boss, a great guy named Chad Boger, he was in San Diego when I was in San Diego around Christmas at the Louisville Bowl game. And Kansas City lost to the Raiders, and I said to him that day, I said, what's wrong with the Chiefs? And he said, we've been so fortunate over the years that even if this year's not our year, it kind of is we can live with it because it's been so great around here. And a month later, here we are in Vegas talking about the Chiefs back in the Super Bowl. And I have so much jealousy about that. And yet, when the poster child for winning, and I'm not going to say Trent Dilfer was a nobody because Trent Dilfer made a lot of money. He was a high first-round draft choice. He was all around the league, but always as a starter. But kind of the poster child for the non-elite quarterback champions. And he says, you can't do it that way anymore. I'm like, you know what? We're all wasting our time if Will Levis doesn't become the guy. That's what this is all about. Throw out what you think of Will Levis. I can't tell you how many people I talk to when it comes to Levis that are like, oh, yeah, I don't think Levis is going to be very good, or, oh, I don't think they should have taken him. Or some of you on Twitter that are like, Jared, what are you talking about? We got QB1, man. I'm like, right now you probably have, if we were to rank them, the 20th best quarterback in the NFL. Like, let's just a consensus, not, oh, well, he could be better than, no. You have arguably the 20th best quarterback in the NFL right now. But that doesn't mean that he's always going to be 20th. And so when Coach Billick, the guy who won with Trent Dilfer at quarterback, with an incredible defense, with a 2,000-yard rusher, with a Hall of Fame tight end, with a Hall of Fame left tackle, with arguably the best middle linebacker in the history of the NFL, when he's telling you, yeah, you got to have a guy. You have to have a star at quarterback. Doesn't have to be Mahomes, because there's only one Mahomes. But you have to have a star at quarterback. It just makes me feel like that's all that matters now, is if Levis becomes that guy. And we could argue that San Francisco is an example of a team that doesn't necessarily have that guy. But I don't know if they can win this game. And that's all. I just want the Titans to be here. And in order for that to happen, they have to get Levis to be that guy. Levis has to have the potential to be that guy. And then they have to be able to coach him. And they have to be able to surround him with talent. And they have to be able to protect him. And they have to be able to keep games manageable so that when push comes to shove at the end of a game, Levis can make those game-winning plays. And then he has to be it. And if he's not it, the Titans aren't going to be back here. And if he's not it, then the guys that are running the Titans may not be running the Titans for a long time. And that's just the reality of today's game. And I even think about Steve McNair, right? Because when the Titans got to the Super Bowl with Steve McNair as the quarterback, Steve McNair at that point in time was more of a passenger, especially statistically, than he was a driver. And McNair was a much play to win that Buffalo Bills game in the playoffs. McNair did not make clutch plays in order to beat the Indianapolis Colts. That was an Eddie George long touchdown run. Now, he did make a couple nice plays in that Jacksonville game, but honestly, Derek, with the free kick return for a touchdown, probably was the big difference-making play in that AFC Championship game. But I don't think you can do that now, and especially in the AFC. And it takes me back, thinking of Coach Billick saying, hey, you can't win without that guy right now. And it takes me back to the morning that Aaron Rodgers announced on Pat McAfee's show that he was going back to the Green Bay Packers and that Russell Wilson was traded to the Denver Broncos, and this is when we thought Russell Wilson was good, and all of a sudden I said, well, there goes the season. I mean, the Titans might have a nice season. They might, whatever, but they're not going to compete for a Super Bowl because with Ryan Tannehill at quarterback, he's not that guy. And so that's what this is all about. What this is all about is whether or not Will Levis can be that guy. So forget about what you think of Levis. Forget about what all the draft guys think of Levis. Forget about even what I think of Will Levis. None of it matters. All that matters is that they set him up for success. That 7th overall pick in the draft, how does it help Will Levis? Free agency. How does it help Will Levis? Does a 270-pound center this year help Will Levis? That's all that matters now. And so I guess it kind of hit me yesterday because Coach Billick said it. And when he said it, that whole, you got to have that guy. You don't have to have the greatest, but you got to have, that guy. I was sitting here thinking to myself, you know what? If the Titans are trying to trick themselves into saying that Will Levis is that guy, and he doesn't, and there are clearly teams that think he is not going to be that guy because they would have drafted him if they thought he was going to be that guy. If that's the case, then it's all kind of a waste. I saw Baker Mayfield walking around here today. I saw Donovan McNabb walking around here today. I'm like, I don't know if those guys are good enough. Baker's got some moments. Tannehill had some moments, got to the AFC title game. But can that guy really get over the hump? Now, there are other guys like Josh Allen who we know are good enough to be able to do that, and they just, can't get past Mahomes or Burrow or whatever. But at least I think everybody knows, like, hey, Buffalo's got a chance to have a team that could be pretty good. Rich Gannon and I were talking about this off the air yesterday, and we were talking about the old 2000s Titans. And Rich was basically talking about how good those Titans teams were. And he said they had 3 plays in the huddle that they would break with because they knew that if they had one play, Schwartz was going to already have some kind of play designed to mess. So they had to get to the line and then decide what they were going to run. And he was like, it was a shame that team didn't win a Super Bowl. And I'm like, yeah. With those players they had, it was a shame. And I think about the Bills now. And I'm like, if this Buffalo Bills team doesn't win a Super Bowl, it will be a shame when we look back on it 20 years from now. It will be a shame that the Buffalo Bills did not win a Super Bowl with this group because they've got that quarterback. You do not. That's what this is all about. If Levis cannot become a top guy, if Levis is going to be Kirk Cousins, then you're not going to be back here. And then it's like, what are we doing? 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. I wanted to start on that today, not because it's this huge pressing discussion of, is Will Levis going to be the franchise quarterback? Is he that? That's kind of like an everyday thing, and it's not something that's going to be decided today or tomorrow, but we'll probably know midway through next season. But I heard Coach Billick say it, and I just kept talking about it to people last night because it's still on my head. It's like, I think sometimes people try to convince themselves and fudge things out and whatever it is. But if Levis isn't that guy, we're all wasting our time. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. What Rich Gannon had to say about Will Levis, and what do we make of it? And by the way, there is one very highly touted draft prospect who came out today, said he wants to play for the Titans. And I did catch up with him. We'll get to that later this hour as well. Stillman & Company live from Radio Row, right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. FanDuel Sportsbook is my official sportsbook app. In fact, they got a whole giant set over there in the corner, and they had a big press conference today with Rob Gronkowski because Rob Gronkowski will be attempting the kick of destiny. Last year, he was wide left on the kick of destiny, and now he's back for kick of destiny, too. And this time, you can play along with Gronk. All you have to do is choose if he'll make or miss it. Get your free pick in right now, because if you're right, you'll win a share of $10 million in bonus bets. Everyone can get in on the action when Gronk takes his shot at redemption before Super Bowl 58. Whether your team make or team miss, just head to the FanDuel Sportsbook app to get your pick in. It's absolutely free. Then tune in before the game to see Gronk's kick live. You'll win a share of $10 million in bonus bets if you're right. New to FanDuel, just visit FanDuel.com/JGM to sign up and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. 21 and over and present in Tennessee. No purchase necessary. $10 million prize pool to be split equally among all eligible participants who make the correct pick. Prize issue is non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See full terms at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789. you brought up Levis. What'd you think so far? What you thought of him going into the year and what you thought with that half season that he played?
I think there were some good things. I think you go back to his first start against Atlanta, and, I broke that game down. I think the way he pushes the ball down the field is exciting. He's got real rare arm talent. I think like a lot of quarterbacks, he needs reps. He needs experience. He has to understand the timing and rhythm. He has to understand protections more. I think he can get better at the short and intermediate throws, his accuracy, his anticipation, I think recognizing pressures and those type of things. Situational football, it just comes with playing the game, and I think, it was a tough year for the Titans when you look at some of the injuries they had, the offensive line play. But I think the future's bright for Will Levis. I think it was good that he got a chance to play a little bit as a rookie.
There you go. That was Rich Gannon on our show yesterday out here at Radio Row when talking about Levis. And again, when Brian Billick, the poster child of winning without the star quarterback, tells you that in today's era, you got to have the star quarterback, it tells me that if Levis isn't the star quarterback, then we're all wasting our time. And if Levis is the star quarterback, then we may have the Titans in the Super Bowl. And again, I cannot tell you how jealous I get of the Kansas City Chiefs and San Francisco and Philadelphia last year. And the way that they do this, for instance, here is the Chiefs and the Niners are staying 30 minutes away. They're staying all the way out at Lake Las Vegas, wherever the hell that is. They're staying way out. And so at their hotel, they have media availabilities for the teams. And the guys that run the Kansas City station that I used to work for, they're telling me, those are the days on Wednesday and Thursday because it's not a big media day thing, but you can kind of sit down and talk to the players before the game one-on-one, get those interviews. And I'm like, oh, my God, if that were the case with the Titans, the way we would probably do this, and it's bad when I'm thinking in my head what we would do if the Titans make it to the Super Bowl, and right now we don't even know if the quarterback's going to be any good or not. But I was like, what I'd want to do is I'd want to stick Caroline out there, 30 minutes away wherever the Titans are, and I'd be like, all right, Caroline, who are you with now? And it's like, or actually I'd probably want to be the one that's out there. And it's like, all right, who am I with now? All right, we're talking to so-and-so getting ready for the big Super Bowl. And so I get excited or whatever. But I think that what Rich Gannon said is exactly how I feel about Will Levis, which is I like Will Levis. I liked Will Levis when he was coming out of college. You all didn't. You all got mad at me. You all, oh, no, he sucked at Kentucky, Jared. I'm like, look, I watched the tape. He did some boneheaded stuff, but for the most part, thought he was pretty good. Then they drafted him. Some of you guys were excited. Some of you guys hated it because he wasn't Hendon Hooker. Then he played the Falcons game, and it was like, oh, my God, he's QB1 Titans there. And I'm like, guys, it's one game. It's like going on a first date and saying, I'm going to marry this person. Easy. It's the first date. And so when Gannon says, he's got to learn the protections a little bit better, and he's got to, work on his mechanics to, those short and intermediate throws, and he needs more experience. And that's his way of saying, hey, he's got a good foundation to work with. Now let's see. And that's where we are here with the Titans. And I'm guessing that midway through next year, we will have a pretty good idea if Will Levis is going to be that guy or not be that guy. After 2 years, they knew Zach Wilson was not worth a damn in New York. So again, midway through next year, we'll have an idea. We won't know for sure, but we'll have an idea. 615-737-1025. Our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. 615-737-1025. Field Yates again at 3 o'clock. Phone line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Texter says, Brian Callahan would not have taken this job if he did not believe in Will Levis, who has the arm talent and the S2 recognition and processing smarts. If Callahan can fix his feet and improve his decision-making, then Levis can be a top 10 quarterback, which is good enough to compete in January. Callahan definitely did his homework on Levis before taking the job. Yes, but he also did his homework on Bryce Young in Carolina. Because I sat down with Callahan after he got the job, And I asked him, I said, how much tape did you watch on the Titans? Because you're doing all these different interviews. And he said, look, I watched the teams with the quarterbacks that I was interviewing with because I wanted to have a good feel for them. And he said he watched the Carolina quarterback, and he was going to go to Carolina to interview for the job. And I don't know, would he have taken the job if he had gotten offered the job? I don't know. But that's the exact same risk you're taking, except you're taking it with less than what you have here because, well, they don't have the picks. So less than what you have here and a crazy owner. I mean, that's, he's willing to take that risk. So I wouldn't just say, I think a lot of these guys, I remember years ago on the old Jared and the GM program, and I was listening back to when the Titans switched quarterbacks in 2019. So this must have been October when the Titans switched to Levis. And I was listening to the old Jared and the GM shows, and I went back to when they switched from Mariota to Tannehill, and I was like, Vrabel, when he took the job, I thought he was supposed to maximize Mariota. And the old man said, well, he's not going to tell the truth. I mean, he's going to say whatever it takes to get the job about the quarterback because it's $6 million and it's a head coaching job, and there's 32 of these in the world. So I wouldn't just say that Brian Callahan has all his chips pushed in the middle on Will Levis, because I do think there's an out for him if he gets into it and doesn't like Levis. Now, I think he likes Levis, but I do think that, he is not married to Will Levis the way that, again, he wouldn't have taken the job. He would have stayed in Cincinnati, all that kind of stuff. One texter into the text line says, I rank Levis about 20th as well, and that's without an offensive line and one weapon. Now, with an pissed off for greatness, oh my God. I can't do this. Like, I can't. When you talk about, oh no, the owners, she's all in now. She says that every time they fire somebody. Every time they fire somebody, the owner comes out and always says, I'll do whatever it takes to win a Super Bowl. Every time. It's in every statement. It's every time. Don't give me the owners angry for greatness. Oh, my God. Adam from Portland. Ian, I don't know if I want to read this text.
Uh-oh, what happened?
Adam says Brian Billick is trash. I don't listen to him. Jeff Fisher was better. Jeff Fisher was better. If Jeff Fisher was better, he might have beaten Brian Billick on occasion. In fact, even the Super Bowl year when the Ravens weren't very good, the Titans went down to Baltimore, got beat 41-14. I mean, I hate to say it, but the proof is in the pudding. Brian Billick came in here and beat you twice. Don't be giving me that Jeff Fisher's better talk. Don't be giving me that. And somebody else texted in and said, well, isn't Brian Billick the guy who is kind of like the poster child of winning without the quarterback? I'm like, that's the point. The point is that even the guy who did it, even he is like, yeah, I don't think you can do that in today's era. More of your phone. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. But yesterday we started, and I did not know Brock Bowers was going to be here at Radio Row yesterday. He was here today. I did not know he was going to be here when we were talking about this yesterday. But we talked to Trevor about, hey, if it goes in the latest ESPN mock draft, if it goes quarterback, wide receiver, then that leaves kind of that seventh pick. And everybody's already decided the Titans are taking the left tackle out of Notre Dame. But remember what the coach said. Elite premium touchdown scorers. And that led us to Brock Bowers. And the fact that the two best tight ends in the NFL are the two teams that are in the Super Bowl. And all of a sudden, he came out and said he wants to play on the Titans. Well, after I heard that, I went and found Brock Bowers, caught up with him, what he had to say. We'll do it next. Stillman & Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Again, we are live at Radio Row here on 102.5 The Game, and our coverage is presented by the Nashville Sheriff. And let me tell all the fine folks out there to tune into 93.3 Classic Hits tomorrow. MTSU basketball takes on Liberty on the road. Pre-game is at 5:30. Tip-off is at 6. Coverage available on the 93. Hits app and at 933classichits.com. And then tune into 94.9 The Fan tomorrow night as Vanderbilt's women's team takes on LSU at home. Pregame at 7:15, tip-off at 8, and coverage is also available on the 94.9 The Fan app. Both of these two teams playing in the Super Bowl got really good tight ends, Trev. And so I think about Brock Bowers. I mean, Chigakonkwo is not Brock Bowers. What do you make of Bowers as a potential pick in the draft?
I think Bowers is a game changer, an absolute game changer. I mean, think Travis Kelce or George Kittle of the 49ers, except better, faster, more capable. Brock Bowers has the size of a tight end. He's about 6'4", about 235, 240. He's got the speed of a wide receiver, and he's got the running toughness and moves of a running back. Georgia lined him up at wide receiver, in the slot, at tight end, at H-back. They put him in the backfield. They put him everywhere, depending on what kind of matchup they wanted to get. And he will be that kind of a matchup problem in the NFL. I mean, think of Kelce, Travis Kelce, for the Chiefs, tight end. Think of him except faster, more athletic, and more capable. And so this guy, if he's available at number 7, and according to this mock draft, he might be, and they took him, again, it wouldn't bother me.
There you go. That was Trevor on our program yesterday about Brock Bowers. So today, I didn't even know, that was yesterday, I didn't even know Brock Bowers was going to be here today. And he was apparently on behalf of Auto Trader. And so he did like all the national big time shows or whatever. So apparently he goes on Pro Football Talk and he says this.
No, you can't control it, but if you could, where would you want to go?
Whoever wants to take me. I mean, it's hard to say. I'd love to go to.
He wants the Niners to get rid of Kittle, and then he wants to go to the 49ers.
I'd be all right.
Let him say it.
I'd be all right with going to the Tennessee Titans. I mean, I liked it down in the Georgia, Tennessee area.
Yeah,
I mean, I thought it was cool, but that'd be a cool spot to
Yeah,
be.
you hear that, Titans?
Okay. So he said that. Chris Sims tweeted it, and all of a sudden my phone started going, Brock Bowers says he wants to be a Titan. Oh, my God. What do we make of it? So you know what I did? I went and found him. And I was like, hey, I need to talk for a second. So I did. And I asked him, what's he think about it, so on and so forth. Here's a conversation earlier today with Brock Bowers.
Here at Radio Row, quick one here with Brock Bowers, Georgia tight end. So you know you just made waves in Nashville by going on Pro Football Talk and saying you want to play for the Titans. So why exactly you want to play for the Titans?
I mean, I think it'd be cool. I mean, I've been up there a couple times to Tennessee, and I mean, I kind of would love to stay in the Southeast. So yeah.
So is there anything like when it comes to the tight end position, the two best tight ends in the NFL are playing this week? Because, you know, it's tight end doesn't look as normally a premium position, but you don't seem to play like a normal tight end, do you?
I mean, I feel like Georgia used me a little differently here and there. I mean, they put me in the backfield, flexed me out wide. I mean, just kind of used me wherever, and I thought that was a ton of fun. So I mean, yeah, I think I might be a little different maybe.
What do you know about Will Levis?
Will Levis, we played him. I think my freshman year or sophomore year? I think he was just there my freshman year. But yeah, I mean, he's been balling.
So is there any other teams other than the Titans that you're thinking about?
I mean, just kind of whoever wants me, and I mean, it's a job, and you're getting to go somewhere and do a job. So,
tell me about Auto Trader.
Yeah, I mean, they're gonna help me get a car when I first get to the league and get my first paycheck. So,
What kind of car?
Hopefully, like a Ford F-250 diesel. So, I like trucks. I have a truck right now, but would like a little upgrade, and they're gonna help make that process easy.
All right, thanks, Brock.
Thank you.
I mean, goodness gracious. Normally these guys, they sit there, they tell you like, oh, yeah, I want to tell you all about my company I'm pitching. They're so great. You should use them. It's just like, yeah, they're going to get me a truck. Can they get me a truck? But again, I think what it is, I mean, I'm a little surprised that he came out and said he wants to be a Titan, especially since I think he's probably going to go before the Titans pick at 7. I think he may go off the board at 5 to the Chargers. But he's like, yeah, I like the Southeast. That's where I want to be. Asked about Levis. I think I played against him. He's bowling. No, just wants to be in Nashville. That's what it is. You know, we talk about this usually when it comes to, like, the Predators. And it's like, oh, yeah, you much rather play in Nashville than play in Winnipeg or Calgary or some dump hole. But nah, I guess that's kind of talk around the NFL, too. 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in here on the show. I mean, it kind of feels, Ian, like it was much ado about really absolutely nothing when it came to that Bauer stuff.
Yeah, maybe so.
And then he's just kind of like, oh, yeah.
He's like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't have said that, but.
You know, I like it in the Southeast. You know, I liked it in Georgia. You do know that Georgia and Tennessee are two different states, right? Now, the good news for him is there's no state income tax in the state of Tennessee. And you get a guy who's about 29 years old, they'll tell you that. You get a guy who's 23 years old, they might not tell you that one way or another. Texter says, Terry from Clarksville says, Brian Callahan took the right job, Jared. The quarterback is 6'4", and the Carolina quarterback is 5'10", and it makes a difference. See, I agree. I agree. I would not have taken Bryce Young with the first overall pick like Carolina did. I would not have traded the entire planet to be able to take Bryce Young like the Carolina Panthers did. Joe would have. I would not have. But that doesn't mean that Brian Callahan doesn't want to coach him. All these guys have flaws, right? I mean, I guess except now C.J. Stroud. But Anthony Richardson has to develop, right? Will Levis turns the ball over and gets hurt. Bryce Young, his team was terrible, and he was terrible last year. But don't rule out the fact that, the only guy in the world for Brian Callahan, the only quarterback he had eyes on was Will Levis. I think he was open to coaching other quarterbacks too, for whatever that will make of. One texter says, I believe he is trying to say he wants no state income tax without saying it. So let's think about this, right? Just logically, okay? With the first overall pick, we all know Chicago is going to go quarterback. Forget about all the talk that they have on TV every day. It's a waste of your time. Caleb Williams is going to Chicago. Number 2, Washington, quarterback. Number 3, New England, quarterback, wide receiver, or tackle, I think is on the board for them at number 3. But I think if they want to go tackle, they'll try to trade down. Arizona 4 is going to go wide receiver. Chargers at 5. They could go tight end. No team before that would even think about tight end. The Giants are at 6. They've got Darren Waller, but I think I don't think that's a strong commitment. I guess they could go tight end. I don't know. Maybe he's looking at it. I don't want to say this, but there's a lot of people that are moving out of California, and they're moving to Tennessee, and there's 2 specific reasons as to why. And the first, is the no state income tax that we're kind of referring to. I think everybody else knows the other one. Maybe that has something to do with it. Oh, who knows? Somebody says that apparently Bowers is from Napa, California. Really? That can't be true. Ian, if I told you that Bowers was from Napa, California after listening to that interview, would
Did
you
not
believe
sound
me?
like it. No.
I got to look this up. He's from
says Napa High School.
From California?
Well, he was born in Napa, California. It says on his Wikipedia.
And he went to Napa? Yeah, he's from Napa.
So I don't know exactly.
And he's like, please don't send me back to California. Whatever you do, Harbaugh, do not send me to California. Please, please, please don't do that. The good news is that if Brock Bowers does get picked by the Titans, all the Titan fans that don't want to take him are going to get really excited because all they need to hear is somebody say, I want to be here. And it's like, he wants to be here. Oh, God, Jared is so great. He wants to, kind of like those people who used to call our show.
Yeah, why didn't he say Atlanta? Yeah, he could have said the Falcons. I guess they don't really. Huh?
Well, they have Kyle Pitts.
So?
And I'll say this. Doesn't Kyle Pitts kind of stink? Like for what Kyle Pitts was supposed to be?
I don't know. He definitely hasn't flashed like everyone thought.
Like he's not, I don't watch every Bengals game, but I can tell you Jamar Chase is really, really good. I don't watch every Lions game, but I can tell you that Penei Sewell is really, really good. Those guys in that draft. I don't watch every Cowboys game, but Micah Parsons is really, really good. Pitts, and the Titans played him, didn't get a stop basically in the second half until Van Jefferson dropped the ball, and I can't even think off the top of my head. I can't even think of anything Kyle Pitts did in that game. I don't even know if he played in that game. Chris Sanders will join us next here live from Radio Row here on Stillman and Company. We love talking to Chris. 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company live out here at Radio Row at Super Bowl 58, and we are joined, as always, on a Wednesday by former Titans receiver Chris Sanders. So, Chris Sanders, I want your thought on this. I want to start with this. Your former teammate at The Ohio State University, Mike Vrabel, cannot get a job this hiring cycle. He interviewed with the Chargers, where I think he became the runner-up. He was mentioned in Carolina and Atlanta, didn't even get the job over Raheem Morris. Everybody wants to know why he can't get a job. Diana Rossini had a ridiculous report that he was too big to be able to get a job. So what do you make, intimidating others, I guess, so what do you make of the fact that Mike Vrabel can't get a job and why?
I don't think it's just him can't get a job. I just think that, when you're looking at coaches or you're looking at a coach or bringing an organization, you want to make sure that it's a good fit for what you're looking for. And I'm not saying that he's a bad head coach or a bad whatever it is, but at the end of the day, you just don't want to put anybody in that position. You got to know what's the philosophy of your team. What do you want in a head coach? Is he going to be, include everybody in? Does he want total control? So at the end of the day, I think a lot of these teams didn't want to hire Mike Vrabel because maybe it just wasn't a good fit. That's not a disrespectful thing. I respect Mike Vrabel to the utmost, but at the end of the day, what does the team want? What's the philosophy of the team, and can Mike Vrabel be a good fit of what we're doing? And I think that's what it is.
Do you think that it's fair what all's happened, at least the narrative about Mike Vrabel? When Mike Vrabel was the coach, he could do no wrong. Yeah. And everybody told me he and Rand were collaborating and they were going to be best buddies. And then the second he gets fired, it's like everything Mike Vrabel did was bad. I don't think that, I don't think that everybody told me everything was rosy when it was going on. I did not buy that. Right. You know that. And I think I was onto something there. And I don't buy that Vrabel is bad at everything and wrong for everything.
I agree with you 100%. I think you got to look at what he did, because when you look at when he took over the team, I mean, they did some good things with McCarthy, but the thing about it is the team was in disarray. I mean, there's a lot of things kind of going on, and he did some good things. He took a situation to where there was 91 players hurt, and he took them to the AFC Championship team. So he really did some good things. But then now you get into a situation where you have, the year before you lose 7 games in a row, and then all of a sudden you come back this year and you have a bad record. I just think that a lot of tension really started to show his ugly face. I mean, everybody's talking about that, he wanted total control of what was happening. Then you got Rand Carthon coming to a situation to where he can't, have complete control. I just think that at the situation, at the point in time, it just wasn't a good mix at that time. So it doesn't mean that Mike Vrabel was a bad guy or a bad coach. I just think at that time with them losing and have a losing season for the last 2 years, I just think it put a bad taste in everybody's mouth.
Chris Sanders is with us. So I think I've struck a nerve, Chris, and I do think
what'd
that.
You do?
Well, and I think this is about me. You know how oftentimes sometimes people think things are about them and it's really not about them, but they think they're more important than they actually are. I don't have any misguided notions about how unimportant I am most of the time. But I think I pissed the Titans off last week getting mad about Rand Carthon not being at the Senior Bowl, because they did a podcast interview where he and Dave McGinnis and Mike Keith spent literally 8 minutes of a 40-minute podcast defending why he didn't go to the Senior Bowl. I think that, quite frankly, I think it was me who kind of, struck that nerve a little bit, right?
I mean, you always do.
Okay, to that point, I look at it like this. I think that players are more important than coaches. Their theory was, hey, he needed to be here so that they could interview the coaches. My theory is let the head coach interview the coaches and you go interview the players, because I think players are more important than coaches. So to you, Chris Sanders, what are more important, players or coaches?
Just kind of looking at the situation, I want to piggyback off what you were saying about Rand Carthon. I know everybody's kind of getting upset because he wasn't at the Senior Bowl, but you got to understand, we always talking about you want to delegate authority. Now, I say delegate authority. You want to let people do their job, because, listen, Jared, at the end of the day, Rand Carthon is going to make the decision. He's going to get all the film. He's going to get all the notes. He's going to get all the things he needs to see when they pick, whoever they want to pick in the draft. So I don't think we need to really go, really look into that so much, because at the end of the day, he's going to make the decision. He's going to get everything that he needs. So,
but he missed the FaceTime. He missed the FaceTime with these players, to get to know these players. And again, to that point, Chris, it's a conscious choice, right? It's a conscious choice of, do I stay back here and work on the coaching search, or do I go to the Senior Bowl and sit down with the scouts and tell the scouts, this is what we're looking for, and this is how we want to scout him, and this is what I want to know about him, and I'm going to go talk to him and all of that stuff. And he chose coaches over players here. To your point about delegation, Chris, he could have delegated that to Brian Callahan to handle the coaching staff.
Right. But Jared, here's the thing. It is a process. I mean, I know this is the first stage of 3. I mean, you got the combine coming up, and then you got the individual workouts. At the combine, that's where a lot of players come up to their rooms, and that's where they do the individual, meetings where they talk, they get to know the players, understand where he's from, what makes them tick, all those things. They get a feel of what the player is. So I understand he wasn't there for the Senior Bowl, but you got to remember the combine is important because they get to see him face to face. And then the most important one is when they have the individual workouts to where they're standing next to him. They watch how he ticks. They watch his attitude. They watch his body language. They watch how he responds after adversity. So I know everybody's upset that he didn't go to the Senior Bowl. That's one process of it, but the other 2 steps of it are the most important because he's going to get film. He's going to get everything that he needs. But now when he goes to the individual workouts, that's when he can put his hands on them. That's when he can talk to him. That's when he can get a feel of, is this a good fit for him? So I understand that you're mad. But remember, it's a process. You got the Senior Bowl. I'm just saying in general. I just want the listeners to understand that because it's a process. You got the Senior Bowl, the Shrine Bowl, whatever it is. Then you have the combine, and then you have the individual workouts, and then you have the different visits. So it's so many layers to this onion that you got to peel. So everybody be patient. I know he wasn't there, but there's still a process to what you got to do.
I just believe that the players are more again, this is a difference of agreement, right? Or difference of opinion.
Sure.
And I hate the term agree to disagree. But the Titans believed that him working on the coaching staff with Brian Callahan and delegating the Senior Bowl player responsibilities to the scouts that were hired by John Robinson, they believed that was more important. I just disagree with that. I think they're both of course they're both important. But I disagree that the coaching staff is more important than the players. I think the players are more important than the coaches. And I would have told Brian Callahan, hey, you're in charge of hiring the coaching staff, but then I'll do a final interview with these guys or whatever. But it's his staff anyways.
Yeah, but why would you go down to the Senior Bowl if you ain't got no coaches? You got to get some coaches to go look at the players. So
no, that's what you got scouts for. But you got to look at the players because you're the one picking the players.
Yeah, but Jared, this is what you got to understand. It's a long drawn out process. I'm telling you, the way that I got drafted in the 3rd round wasn't because of the Senior Bowl. Yeah, I had a good Senior Bowl, but once I got drafted is because they had a chance to see me in person up front 2 yards away from me. Chris run a curl. Chris run a slant. Chris do that. Okay, Chris, tell me about your childhood. Tell me what makes you tick. They see me drop a ball. How do I respond? So now they get to touch on what they want, see if they want me to be on that team or not. So I respect what you're saying that, he should have been. Yes, I agree with that. But, Jerry, that's not the most important thing of the process of drafting a player. It's the combine and the individual workouts. Those are the ones that are most important. Because why? Because you get a good look of, is this the guy I want? Because you get to take him through the process.
Sure. Chris Sanders is with us. Who went to Super Bowl, Chris?
You don't sound convinced.
I just completely I disagree with you the way I disagree with them.
God, look.
I think the idea we had Thomas Dimitroff on yesterday, who was the old general manager of the Falcons, who hired Rand Carthon into personnel. And yesterday we brought this up with him, and he was like, look, everybody can do what they want to do, and some GMs nowadays aren't going, but if I was GM, I wanted every opportunity I could to get to know the players and get to be around the players and watch the players and all of that. And so, again, the Titans can do whatever they want to do. They own the team. They run the team. If they screw up, they get fired, not me. But I disagree with it. And that's fine. It's okay to disagree. It's not that big of a deal, but I disagree with it.
Okay, let me ask you a question. When is the draft? The draft is late April, right?
Sure.
Jared, it's February. It's February. You still got to go through the process. And I'm going to give you a perfect example. I thought Washington Redskins were going to take me. I did an interview with Robisky. Robisky liked what I did. He loved what I did, whatever. So now when I get cut from the Titans, who calls me up? Robisky, because he knew me, he talked to me, he understood me, that was going to be a good fit. Whatever it was, it's because he had a chance to talk to me. That's the same thing with the situation that's going on with the combine and the individual workouts. I understand the Senior Bowl. I understand that he needs to be there, but to get close up is when you're at the combine and when you're at the individual workouts, because
you can get close up at the Senior Bowl too, right?
Face. Yeah,
you do that at the Senior Bowl.
But Jared.
You're saying that it doesn't matter because they can get up close at the combine.
I'm not saying it doesn't matter, but that's a small piece of the puzzle. You got to put the whole puzzle together. He's going to get the information. Those scouts are going to tell him, "Hey, this guy stood out. That guy stood out."
Chris,
Jared,
what is a giant puzzle with
Jared,
it missing a piece?
Jared,
it's incomplete.
Jared, how is it incomplete?
You just said it's a piece of the puzzle.
Jared.
So if it's a puzzle and I take the piece out of the puzzle, it's a missing puzzle piece.
Jared, here's the thing. Jared, I've been through the process. Nobody knew me before I got drafted. Nobody knew me at the Senior Bowl. I had an okay Senior Bowl. Now I go to the combine. Now I do my individual workouts. Now they're like, okay, this guy's interested. Now a whole bunch of coaches come to Ohio State and say, okay, I remember he stood out at the combine. Let me touch him right now. Let me see him run routes. That's what I'm saying.
Chris, who drafted you?
Oh, my
Who
goodness.
drafted? Who made the decision to draft you?
And guess who never talked to me? The Houston Oilers.
But he was at the Senior Bowl, right?
Yeah, and he was at my individual workouts and the combine.
I'll tell you. Chris, again, that's fine. I just disagree.
Okay,
I still love you. I still love you.
I love you too, brother.
But I disagree. Who won Super Bowl?
Okay. I'm going with the San Francisco 49ers.
How? How can you go with the 49ers? Of course you went with the 49ers.
It's obviously the way you're going. That's why. I know every time I bet against Mahomes, he wins, but I'm hoping the 49ers win because I'm tired of seeing Kelsey and Taylor Swift. I'm just sick of it. That's why.
There you go. Chris Sanders, as always.
Love you, my brother.
I love you
so
too,
much,
Chris.
Man.
Chris Sanders joining us on the program. All right. We got a break late there because, again, Chris and I, and again, can I just say this once? It's not that big of a deal. I just don't like it. That's it. It's not a big deal. So, but then when everybody talks about it all the time, it's like, oh, now it's this big deal because Jared's mad about it. I don't care. I mean, I would have done it, but I don't care. Field Yates sits down with us next here on Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Studios, Super Bowl 58 Radio Row right here in Las Vegas. And, of course, our coverage, as always, is presented by the Nashville Sheriff. The Nashville Sheriff is hiring correctional officers. Call 615-862-8170 or email kirk.hopkins@nashvillesheriff.gov. We are set to be joined right now by Field Yates, ESPN, here as we get set here. The draft's coming up. Field sitting down here on the program. Field,
good to be here.
Glad to have you.
Yeah.
You and Mel Kiper have been doing the First Draft podcast.
Yeah.
And I've been watching it on YouTube, and I've been,
thank you for watching on YouTube. That helps.
Thank you. And
podcast also helps, but YouTube, that's the way of the world right now, right?
Well, I'm sitting here and I'm looking at it. I'm like, man, these guys are breaking it down.
Yeah.
We don't even know who's declaring, who's not declaring.
Yeah.
We haven't been to the combine yet. We haven't been to the. So how much scouting have you done so far on this upcoming class, given that the Senior Bowl's in the rearview mirror, but the other stuff hasn't come in front of us yet?
Yeah, so, I would say that I'm trying to think of, the appropriate way to sort of compare / the analogy I want to make for this. But I've watched hundreds of players to this point, and I would say that I've watched the players that have – I'm sure there are players that could go top 100 that I haven't done a full deep dive on, but I would think that I have probably watched most of the guys that have an excellent chance of being drafted in the first 150 or so picks. But I would say that there's a couple of pieces of the puzzle that have not yet been filled in. When you get to the combine in February, obviously there's a real chance that guys who are kind of clustered close together, right? That's what the combine can provide, is some tie-breaking moments. You might have 10 wide receivers that you sort of feel as though have third to fourth round grades. Maybe you go to the combine, 3 of those guys run way faster than you expect, 3 of those guys run way slower than you expect, and all of a sudden you might have 3 guys that become, sort of lock third-round picks, 3 guys that might become more like fifth-round picks, and the 4 guys in the middle remain fourth-round picks. There's also a big medical component to the combine, all stuff that, of course, I know you're familiar with, but we are still in information-gathering mode, which goes all the way up until the draft. But the next and maybe most important last thing is the combine. We've been through the bowl games already, the various all-star games, and while pro days are important, I think they're much more important for the team than they are for people like myself who are evaluating these prospects. We also know there's some fool's gold involved in those pro days. You take the bait on those quarterback pro days where they're throwing on air, making a couple of highlight reel plays. I think those are important, though, for teams that want to go through the interview process, have dinner with these guys, get a better feel for what kind of leader they are, how they would handle adversity, things of that nature.
So I want to start with the Titans at 7 because all I ever hear,
spot.
Joe Alt, Joe Alt,
Yeah.
Joe Alt, Joe
If he's
Alt.
there, yeah.
The line sucks. There's no way around that.
Yep.
But I talked to Brian Callahan the day after he got hired. I
Yep.
sat down with him and I said, when you were in Cincinnati in 2021, you guys had a choice to make.
Talked about this often, yeah.
And he went in depth on the Sewell Chase debate that they had in Cincinnati. And he said that he believed that the premium elite touchdown scorers are more important to him than the premium elite non-touchdown scorers.
Yeah.
Which takes me to Roma Dunze might be there,
Yep.
Malik Neighbors might be there, Brock Bowers might be there.
Yeah.
And so is it as simple as Joe Alt is so good and that line is so bad that even if Malik Neighbors is there, even if Brock Bowers is there, you have to take Joe Alt?
So a ton of things can happen. This is a February, what's it, the 8th right now? 7th? What are we at?
Something
February
like that.
7th. All right,
Yes.
so this is our February 7th forecast. I believe on February 7th that quarterbacks will go 1, 2, 3 in the draft. I believe that Marvin Harrison Jr. will go 4th in the draft, or he will be, whether it's a trade up or whether it's the Arizona Cardinals. Those 4 I do not think are in play for the Titans at pick number 7. So I think that the board, again, these are February 7th thoughts, might sort itself out for Tennessee by the time they get to pick number 7. I'm not saying that you ever want to settle, but in some ways you could make this as straightforward as the next 3 up after those 4 that I've already mentioned are 2 outstanding wide receivers and an offensive tackle in Joel. You just mentioned the 2 wide receivers. Roma Dunze for Washington, Malik Neighbors from LSU. I would say that Neighbors is the more explosive player. I would say that Dunze might be the more well-rounded player, but we're really choosing between 6 in one hand, a half dozen in the other. Your favorite pizza slice in all of Nashville, maybe it's 2, whatever. It's the very narrowest of margins here. So you might say, I'm just taking whichever of those 3 is available. If you're making the case for a Joe Alt against one of those wide receivers, if one of them is still available, while I think that the Penei Sewell, Jamar Chase debate at the time was one that was spirited and very much a great talking point for those in and outside of Cincinnati. There was no wrong answer, right?
Sure.
I really believe that. Now,
and that's what Callahan said, too.
You could have gone, and if they had taken Penei Sewell, do you think they'd have any regret about that? Because
he said either guy they took, they felt like was going to make 10 Pro Bowls.
And that's kind of where those guys are headed, right? Penei Sewell might legitimately be the best offensive lineman in the entire NFL now. That's how terrific of a player he has become. At the very least, he's a Pro Bowl, All-Pro level player every single season. So there was no wrong answer there, which in the same way that if they have that debate, a Joe Alt versus Malik Neighbors, Joe Alt versus Roma Dunze debate, I think the answer is yes. Like, take whichever you feel you have a slightly higher grade on, or if you have, the identical grade to those players, then I think you just have to make a philosophical decision. I will say this, and I know that it's not the thing that people want to hear, especially because we are officially into mock draft season. My first mock draft will be available on ESPN next Wednesday, Valentine's Day, which would be great. I'm sure everybody would love if their significant other is spending Valentine's Day reading mock drafts. But
I have a pretty good feeling at 2 o'clock on Wednesday's program, it'll be Field Yates put in his mock draft.
Yeah. I'm going to throw a curveball. I'm going to throw a curveball in there.
Good, because every single mock draft has the Titans taking Joe Alt with the 7th pick.
We'll see. We'll see whether he's available there, and if he is, he's certainly in strong consideration, not to spoil the draft. But March means so much to the draft as well, right? Because I would be my current expectation, and you can tell me I'm insane for saying this, or you could tell me I agree, is I think Andre Dillard is not on the roster by the time that the draft begins.
It's a hot take.
So let's assume that is the case. But in a world in which he is.
He won't be.
Correct.
Yeah.
But if there's, in this unlikely scenario, he still is, all right, well, maybe you say to yourself, well, left tackle is not going to be as much of a priority because of just how many resources you have available. I think you and I both agree where that one's heading. But you cut him in a hypothetical world. How do you fill that vacancy? And if the answer is you do nothing in free agency, it's kind of forecasting what the draft might look like. They have obviously some money to spend this offseason, and there are some decent wide receivers available. We'll see how many of them actually hit the open market because of the franchise tag and the opportunity for an extension with their incumbent teams. But March plays such a major role in how the draft will play out. But I truly believe this, and I'm not saying this because I'm doing a radio interview with a station based in Nashville, very popular radio show as well, is that the board shapes up well for them. And I'm telling you, there are teams, a slot, maybe 2 slots behind them, maybe 3 slots behind them, where the board does not shape up nearly as nicely. I really believe that. Now, obviously, if the forecast that I had for the first 4 picks goes differently, maybe it does. Like if for some reason those quarterbacks start to slide, then they might be. It might not be as favorable of a spot for Tennessee because obviously I think Will Levis is probably the guy going forward. I guess they could take a quarterback. I'd be surprised by that. Very surprised by that, I should say. But if those wide receivers are off the board and Joe Alt's off the board, it creates a different dynamic. So, but assuming it goes how I've currently forecasted, the board shapes up extremely well for them. And I think that there's not a wrong answer there, but they got a hit on more than just this, by the way. Like, we have seen that, like, last year, I think they did acquit it very nicely. Rounds 1, 2, 3 feel like hit. Which one do you disagree with?
Skoronski.
You don't think Skoronski's a hit?
No, I mean, at 11th overall. Now,
you don't want to guard, or you just don't want to?
Well, that's the number one thing, is I don't want to guard unless he's going right to the
Quentin
Pro
Nelson
Bowl
and
right to the Hall of Fame.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
The second thing is, I don't know how much, and people make kind of some excuses here. He had an appendectomy early in the season.
Yeah. That'll hit the strength hard.
I'm not sure that that's as big as I do buy in a little bit that the left tackle and center being so bad, made him look worse.
Yeah.
But at the same time, get the 11th overall pick in the draft. I need a premium player.
Fair enough.
And I just don't think Skoronski's that.
Okay, we'll see. I mean, I think there's a lot of football left to decide whether he is a premium player or not. Whether you and I view it differently in terms of a major hit or a solid starter, it wasn't a bust, right?
Sure.
So I thought that those first 3 picks between, Will Levis obviously has a real chance and has got some serious, I would say he's got a little bit of an it factor about him that I think is encouraging right now. And Tajay Spears might be the starting running back this year. I would probably still like to have a second running back given his frame and his build and just the idea that in the NFL, Derrick Henrys don't, he is sort of a dinosaur, right? Like, I don't know where he'll end up next year. Sounds like maybe not Tennessee, but like he was kind of the lone survivor amongst backs that were carrying the football 300-plus times every single year with a chance for 400 total carries. So my personal belief is that the last year's draft was pretty solid, but it's a reminder. the draft, and I know this is not what people want to hear, it's not over after round 1. Like, they got to hit, is it pick 38 they have, 39?
See, that's the perfect thing. Phil Yates is with us from ESPN. Is the Titans are sitting there at 7.
Yep.
I've been told, and I don't do this like you do, I've been told that this draft is incredibly deep at tackle and wide receiver.
Yes.
The Titans need
both
tackle and wide receiver. So I wonder if it's 7, to your point, if Brock Bowers is sitting there and there is a team that covets him.
Yep.
And, I look at the 2 tight ends that are playing in the Super Bowl right now, and I'm like, those are the 2 best in the game, and Bowers might be as good or better than they are.
If there is a chance to be,
if there's a team that covets one of these guys that's there at 7, is Joe Alt so good that it wouldn't be worth, say, a trade out to 14 to pick up, a second and a fourth and to then add later? Because that's really the big question here is how deep the board is.
Yeah, so I would say at tackle, it is deep, but the cliff comes a lot sooner than a wide receiver, right? So I think there's maybe 7, 8, 9, maybe 10 tackles that can be first-year starters in the NFL. And candidly, 9 and 10 might be more like it's going to take a full year to get those guys to be where you want them to be at, all right? We can run through all the names, but that's probably too cumbersome for a radio interview. So at pick 37, is that correct?
I think 38.
38. It's always weird because the NFL, you don't have the exact same slot in the first and second round if you have a tied record, et cetera. So they can hit at wide receiver at 7 or at 14, and like 38, 39, like there's going to be an awesome wide receiver available there.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have little doubt about that, right? Like Ladd McConkey from Georgia, guy was borderline uncoverable down there at the Senior Bowl. You've got Adonai Mitchell from Texas. He's probably going to go in the first round, but Xavier Worthy, his teammate from Texas, is going to be there. We don't know. It's hard to forecast past about the first 8 or 9 picks here, but there are going to be guys that have a real chance to be year one starters at wide receiver that will be there at 38, 39. Tackle, I think there's a chance that 7th, 8th tackle is there, but the risk you run in bypassing a tackle in the first round is that it's not a guarantee. Like those tackles could just fly off the board because a lot of the teams that want to win right now that are already in the playoffs actually have bigger gaps at offensive tackle than you might realize. Cincinnati is a good example. Cincinnati right now needs a right tackle. Like they're obviously thrilled with Jamar Chase, but they have a Penei Sewell type gap on their right tackle along their line, and pressure was a problem for them at least at the beginning of last season. So I would argue that the wide receiver in round 2 is easier to find than the offensive tackle, which could influence if you do have a Joe Alt versus a Roma Dunze decision at pick 7. That could certainly influence it a little bit. I'd also add this. You mentioned the idea of trading from 7 to 14. There, to me, are definitely 100% high-level tackle prospects that should be there at pick number 14. Olu Fashanu from Penn State could be there. Tyler Guyton, an offensive tackle from Oklahoma, could still be there. Marius Mims, an offensive tackle from Georgia. He and Guyton might need a little bit of time, but if you saw them walking around this room, and you and I are in a room right now that's got a ton of current and former athletes who are sort of built from they look like gods. Those two right there, Tyler Guyton and Marius Mims, are they arrived from offensive line factory. Like they are born to be offensive tackles. They're huge, imposing, very gifted players, just need a little bit more experience. Those guys are going to be available at 14. So if you can do the calculus of, all right, I could have Joe Alt, who's awesome, day one starter, feel great about it for the next 7 years, or you could have an Marius Mims, probably more of a Tyler Guyton, Olu Fashanu at 14, plus an extra 45 and 75 and whatever else you would be able to accumulate in that trade down. That, to me, is a reasonable calculus. It's easier for you and I to have that conversation and sort of play that one out. The thing I constantly hear from teams, and I get it from their standpoint, is there are jobs on the line, right? If I miss in my mock draft this year, I want to do as great of a job as I can, but the reality is that, there's just a whole lot more at stake for teams that whiff on draft pick evaluation than there are for people in my position. I don't take that as license to do poorly. I just, I understand that if I, call Bryce Young a surefire, no doubt about it kind of guy, a year later, you probably still have your job. Whereas, Frank Reich and Scott Fitter have already been fired.
Did you have that opinion on Bryce Young?
So I was in a different role last year, but I didn't have as much of an in-depth scouting report. But I felt very, very, very strongly that the Panthers had not screwed up. I felt like that was a totally reasonable, justifiable selection. And I thought that I wasn't gonna bash them I was, a little more hesitant on the move up from 9 to 1
Yeah.
because it's a huge price to pay. But I did not feel like they had made a mistake the moment they drafted Bryce Young. So, anyways, to bring this back to the point, you go from 7 to 14. Yes, I think you feel pretty good about getting one of those tackles that I mentioned. But if inside Rand Carthon's scouting room, he says, yeah, there are 8 that could go in the first round, but I feel like 4 for us meet the certain threshold. You got to be certain one of those 4 is available at pick 14, and that uncertainty is scary, especially in between the time that you maneuver the trade down and actually get back on the clock. It's just a daunting hour-plus time, sweating, waiting, saying to yourself, if we don't get this guy, I don't know what we do. I don't know this for a fact, but certainly a lot of people felt like the Jets thought maybe they could get Broderick Jones last year at pick 16. Steelers end up jumping up from 17 to 14. They get Broderick Jones, and the Jets, who were loaded on defense, end up taking Will McDonald, who's going to be a good player, barely played for him this year. The guy was like a healthy scratch like all the time because they're so good on defense. But it was one of those where they ended up sort of trusting their board more than going for a player that filled a big need, which is, to me, always good sound drafting, except for the fact that their window probably is a little shorter to work with right now. You've got a 40-year-old quarterback. You kind of got to go more win now than you are plan for the next 5 years.
Field, what do you think? Field Yates is with us, ESPN. What do you think of Levis?
I'm a Levis guy, and I admit a touch of bias because Will played his high school ball in the same town that I went to college. So,
Homer.
But no, I say this to be objective about the football skill set. There is a little bit of a peaks and pit nature to Will's game, right? The great throws. I think about that Miami fourth quarter all the time, right? That's legit high-level stuff that I think is really hard to replicate for a young quarterback that Will brings to the table. Obviously, the occasional carelessness. But I think Will, once he is able to turn the fearlessness that he brings to the table into, audacity, right? Because there's a fearlessness that can often be accompanied in sports by carelessness, right? He harnesses that just a little bit. His competitiveness is legitimately, I think, contagious. I'm not trying to overreact to one game too much, but we haven't seen too many fourth quarters like that from a rookie quarterback in quite some time. So I'm a Will believer. Obviously, the arm strength is there. I hate the term arm talent, but the arm talent is certainly there as well. When the deck is a little more stacked, whether it's at offensive tackle, wide receiver, or both, I think we'll see a different version of him. And maybe he shouldn't have gone in the second round based off what we saw this year, but that could end up being, that's a potential stroke of genius because it's an incredible bargain.
I want to give you my assessment of Levis, and then I want your opinion of that. I liked him when he was coming out. I watched the Georgia tape, and I thought they scored 6 points, so I figured I'd hate it.
Yeah.
And then I watched it. I'm like, he gave him a chance. He made one missed throw that hurt them before the half.
Totally.
And then a boneheaded interception that I didn't like. And yet he battled through it, kept them in the game. I really walked out of it saying, I like him. And then they, in the process, everybody, because he didn't go to Tennessee, everybody in Nashville, he's terrible, I said, I like him. Then they drafted him, and I continued to say that I liked him.
Yeah.
Then he got out there, he had success. Everybody in town thought, oh, my God, the Titans have the next great guy. And I'm like, look, I like him. That's where I sit right now. I don't love him. I loved Anthony Richardson.
Okay.
I thought that was
special.
Unbelievable talent.
So okay.
I look at I like him. But there's still, I think there's two things. One, he makes too many boneheaded decisions. And with the experience, the real question here is, will that get worked out or will he always make those decisions? And I think he gets hurt. He got hurt at Kentucky. He got hurt at the Titans. But those offensive lines were terrible, so maybe it was the lines and not him.
Yeah, so this is I think, an inflection point season coming up. Let's assume that they don't take a quarterback, which I think it's an interesting point that you say you like him, because I don't know what Rand Carthon feels.
Well, the owner, when she fired Mike Vrabel, she did mention, we have a young quarterback that we like. And I think that's enough for me to say, okay, that's the quarterback.
But do not ever underestimate the importance of like versus love at quarterback is everything. Mm-hmm. I tell people it's like house shopping. It's like you don't buy a house you like, you buy a house you love, right?
Sure.
If you have the ability to be patient on it, So there is a massive, massive year ahead here for Will. I think everything though that you have mentioned that Will needs to improve upon is actually improvable, if that's a word. I believe that truly. I think you can be you can learn to be a bit more protective. You can learn. Like I think carelessness. Will over the past 2 seasons has been in a spot where he felt like he needed to get it all back in one play. It happened in Kentucky that entire season in 2022, and at times when you're playing at a team that finishes what were they 6-11 this year?
Do you know what I think that is? I think that's anxiety. I think that is the game's starting to slip away a little bit, and then he becomes this, I've got to make this play right now to win us the game. I'm like, dude, you can't hit a 5-run homer.
Right, that's exactly correct. So we see that all too often. I actually thought that, not to make this about the draft again, but Spencer Rattler from South Carolina, who I like as a prospect, had a bit too much of that going in his game this year. Like, down 14, try to get it all back in one play, you literally cannot. So anyways, just to round out the Will thoughts, I think it's all coachable, but it's a huge year, and not to take the easy way out, but we have to see what it looks like with much more respectable pieces in terms of personnel around him. Offensive tackle, wide receiver upgrade, hopefully both, and then a new system, right? I mean, it's sort of Brian says he's going to call plays, right?
Yep.
So that's obviously an adjustment for him as well. Just a new quarterback and just a new team and all that. But I think there's a chance, because you took a second round pick. The risk is so it's not insignificant, but it's much more insignificant relative to a first-round pick. Like, the money obviously is one part of it. Also, just like teams are not going to move off of a first-round pick as easily as they would a second-round pick because of organizational pride. That's just the way it works. I mean, just look around the NFL. Like, the scholarship is that much bigger if you're the 7th pick in the first round versus the 7th pick in the second. I know he was the 2nd pick in the third and the second round.
But they have the press conference where they hold up the jersey the next day, and it's like, this is our guy.
Yes, but.
And we'll see.
But how about this, though, is like, if this year is a total miss, and I don't think it will be for real, but if it is, moving off of a second-round pick a year from now is just a different calculus than having to admit error on a first-round pick. It just
Absolutely.
is. It just is.
Absolutely. Field, thanks for stopping by.
Thanks
Field
for having
Yates,
me on.
ESPN, the First Draft podcast. He's got his mock draft coming out this, Wednesday?
Wednesday, Valentine's Day mock draft.
Is it
Love
already
is in the air.
Is it already done, and you're just waiting to click on it?
22 picks have been done. 21 picks. So I'm on the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm waiting on a couple of pieces of information that I think will help me educate the last 11 picks.
Okay, I'm just going to ask you this. I don't want to. Is Joe Alt going to the Titans in your mock draft?
Possibly.
Okay. Field Yates,
possible.
as always,
Possible.
joining us. Field, great stuff. Appreciate you as always. Stillman and Company, we roll along on 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Great interview with Field Yates. We did go a little bit long, and we do have Warren Moon coming up later this hour. That's right. Warren Moon will join us from Radio Row. We'll get his thought. I am fascinated by what Warren Moon will have to say when he joins us later this hour. There was one takeaway from the Field Yates thing and his mock draft that I have a pretty good idea who he's going to be selecting with the Titans. And we'll get to that coming up next. 615-737-1025 in your phones. And again, Warren Moon at 45 after this hour. Be caller 5 right now at 615-737-1025. You want a pair of tickets to see Disturbed with special guest Falling in Reverse at Bridgestone Arena on Saturday, February 17th. Good luck on that. Let's talk about Window Nation. That's right. I love Window Nation, and I hate the idea of you having jacked up prices on your energy bills because you've got faulty windows. So go to windownation.com. I also hate the idea of you having a home that you'd like to kick the value up because you might be thinking of selling here in the near future and not getting as much bang for your buck. And here's where you're going to get the bang for your buck with Window Nation. That's right. Replace your windows and save big with 50% off all window styles. Plus, 0 down, 0 interest, and no payments for 24 months. With proven quality and service, it's no wonder why thousands have trusted Window Nation. So do not miss out. Again, I mean, if you've got those cold air drafts coming in, if you've got the sun hitting that window and it just, turns the entire room into a sauna, you need your windows replaced. Plus, let's not kid ourselves. You know when you need your windows replaced. So do so today. Again, 0 down, 0 interest, no payments for 24 months. And with proven quality and service, again, it's Window Nation. 866-90Nation or online at windownation.com.
even in a game where we got battered up front and Joe got sacked 9 times and probably hit 15 and we really, outside of one drive and one explosive play, didn't really do much in that game. And we get a turnover late in the game, and now they're going to play two-man, and Jamar goes and wins versus two-man and wins the game. And so those moments have always stuck with me. When a push comes to shove, do you want to have someone that can go score touchdowns and go win versus tight coverage? And in that debate, the Sewell-Chase debate, which was, again, 2 players that you knew, whichever one we take is probably going to be a 10-time Pro Bowler, first-team All-Pro style player. And Panay was fantastic, and we loved him. And Jamar was fantastic, and we loved him. And the debate went back and forth, and which one do we need? And I landed on the Jamar Chase side because I saw what he could do for our offense. The difference there to me is like Jamar was an elite player. And in that moment for our team in Cincinnati, the elite player that can score touchdowns versus the elite player that can protect the quarterback with the style of quarterback that we had and the style of offense that we ran, we took the guy that could score touchdowns.
That was Brian Callahan after he got hired, and I agree. I want the elite touchdown scorer over the non-elite touchdown scorer. Or excuse me, the elite touchdown scorer over the elite non-touchdown scorer. And let me just say this. Every single mock draft I have seen, and I did say to Field that when he was, he was walking off, I said, Field, you got Joe Alt going to the Titans at 7. And he looked at me like, yes. So I've never seen this before, where every mock draft has the exact same guy going with the 7th overall pick to a team. But everybody is saying Joe Alt, Joe Alt, Joe Alt, Joe Alt. Which doesn't it just make you feel like, because everybody's saying it won't happen unless it's the number 1 or number 2 pick in a draft? But everybody's saying Joe Alt, Joe Alt, Joe Alt, Joe Alt, Joe Alt. But remember, the coach does not value a non-touchdown scorer that high, or at least if he's got an elite touchdown scorer ahead of it. And with the 3 receivers and Brock Bowers, it seems inevitable that one of those guys could be there at the 7, would be there, will most likely be there. Almost it's impossible that they won't be there with the 7th overall pick. Glenn says, in our phone line driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com, I would take a left tackle in the draft. I think he would make the whole team better, the quarterback, running game, passing game, and offensive line. Don't have a disagreement with that. But then the next guy says, well, wait a minute. Don't we have the best offensive line coach in the NFL? So if we have the best offensive line coach in the NFL, the texter says, can't we take a 3rd rounder and turn him into a starter? It's a good question. I see, again, going on both sides. But I want the touchdown scorer. And I think that the receiver, add A.J. Brown to this group. Then what happens? Donovan says Brock Bowers first pick, and then the 2 best remaining left tackles and a wide receiver in the 3rd because it's so deep. And Field did say he feels much better about, if you get the tackle, being able to get the receiver after you get the tackle. But is it going to be a Jamar Chase type receiver? But it could be like a T. Higgins type receiver as well. All right, Warren Moon is going to join us. We're going to talk to Warren about the state of the Titans. We're going to talk to Warren about the Oilers jerseys. What do you make of all that? But most importantly, we're going to talk to Warren, Hall of Fame quarterback. We're going to talk to Warren Moon about Will Levis. What he sees, what he likes, what he doesn't like. We'll do that coming up next. Warren Moon will join us right here, Stillman and Company, 1025-1063 The Game. Radio Row at Super Bowl 58 here. Our coverage presented by the Nashville Sheriff. We are joined now by Hall of Fame quarterback Warren Moon. Warren is here on behalf of Gear Up Tennessee, a partnership with the Tennessee State Department of Health that is focused on helping people stay healthy, which includes staying up to date on their shots. A bunch of former alumni with Gear Up Tennessee, and I know you're really excited about that. Good to see you.
Yeah, I really am, and it's a program that a lot of players, former players, are really into giving back to the community, making sure the community stays healthy, the community stays safe, make sure people are getting vaccinated, as far as like the flu and SRV and all the different things that are out there that could, affect you. So we also have a program that we just started today. We're launching this with the Better Business Bureau called the Better Business Bureau Heart of Texas Foundation, and we're going to teach young people, the lessons of trying to be successful in business by using the same lessons we learned in football.
Well, we were talking off air about how, when I used to do the show with Floyd, about how he would always say he loved you, but he traded you.
Yes, he did.
And that you never let him forget
No.
that the guy he replaced you with, Cody Carlson, didn't happen to end up in the Hall of Fame like you did. So I want to start with this, though, Warren, which is, what do you think about Will Levis, the Titans quarterback? I want to get your thoughts on C.J. Stroud in Houston as well, but, right now, as well as anybody, you can't win in this game without a great quarterback, and the great quarterbacks are developed more than they are born. So what do you think when you look at Levis? It's early, but just your kind of early diagnosis.
Well, you look at his gifts. He has a very good arm. He can make all the different throws. I think he's mobile enough to be able to move around and make some plays outside the pocket. He's a very tough guy, and sometimes that toughness can get him in trouble because he tries to take on people that he probably shouldn't take on. So he needs to be a little smarter when he's being tough. But I think he's a guy that can play in this league for a long time, and you definitely got to put some pieces around him. And I think if you do that, he can be very successful. He got off to a great start. I remember seeing his first start against Atlanta when they wore the Oiler jerseys, and he had 4 touchdown passes, and he had a great game that day. But things kind of went down a little bit after that. So I think with a young guy, you have to continue to keep developing, and so hopefully he'll take his tape that he played most of the season, because I know he got hurt for a few games as well. Take a look at what he did right, what he did wrong, and learn from that, and just continue to keep developing, and they'll continue to keep putting talent around him.
Titans have a high pick, picking 7th overall, Warren Moon. What do you think about going with the star tackle or the star wide receiver, because they may be in a spot where they would pick between the two? If you were Will Levis, what would you rather have, the star receiver or the star tackle?
I was blessed to play with some really good offensive linemen, and I think that's one of the reasons I played 23 years of professional football, is I had a guy like Bruce Matthews, who was a former Oiler and Titan, Mike Munchak. Those guys, you got to have that stability up front, not only just for pass protection, but also running the football. And I hear there's some really, really good offensive tackles in this year's draft. I think receivers, maybe you can get a little bit further down the line. You don't have to go way up as far as number 7 unless you're getting a Marvin Jr. Yeah, Marvin. What's his last name? Harrison Jr. If you're getting somebody like that, maybe yes. But other than that, I would probably go after one of those tackles.
What do you think about Derrick Henry and the Titans? He kind of said his goodbye there the last game, but then left the door open, and the Titans have left the door open. And the money for running backs, he's going to hit free agency, as are all these other really good running backs, and it is not what it was when you played. And so I do think there's value to having Derrick on this team for his leadership and what he means to the team, and that means more money might come from Tennessee. Where do you kind of see Derrick doing, and what do you think is probably right for him, or what his mindset should be going into free agency?
Yeah, I'd love to see him finish his career with the Titans. He's had an unbelievable career there. I think he still has some fuel left in the tank. They do need to improve their offensive line a little bit. But I think when you have a Derrick Henry, it makes the job of the quarterback a little bit easier, because he can dictate what the defense is going to do. You can't play too high shell all the time with him back there. You got to bring that safety down. And when you bring that safety down, there's only so many things you can do defensively. So it really helps the quarterback as far as the passing game. So I think having the threat of him on the football team is something they need to really consider. And especially Derek, if he goes to another team where there's maybe $1 million difference or something like that, is it really worth going to another football team for that slight of difference? I say $1 million like it's nothing, but you know what I mean in today's
Sure.
football. So if it's the difference between 10 million and 12 million or something like that, why not stay with the Titans, a place that a place you call home, and developing with a good young quarterback. Unless maybe he has goals to go somewhere where he wants to win a championship, and maybe there's a championship type contender that wants his services.
Warren, what do you think about Amy Adams-Strunk, your relationship with her, and just the awkward uncomfortableness of the fact that the Oilers are not in Houston anymore. They're in Tennessee. There's a team in Houston. The people of Houston still very angry about how maybe some of that went down.
Yeah.
You guys played in Houston. You didn't play in Tennessee. She's tried real hard to kind of bridge that. What would you say your thoughts on her as an owner are and your relationship with her?
Yeah, my relationship with her is great. I love Amy. She's done an amazing job as an owner. This is a job she's kind of learned on the run. You got to remember, she grew up as an Oiler fan. Her dad owned the Oilers, and that's what she knows. Of course, the Tennessee Titans have been there for a number of years, but she still has a love for the Houston Oilers, and that's why she hung on to those rights. And she waited a long time to be able to use these uniforms till the league finally okayed to her to be able to wear the helmet as well, because she wanted to wear the whole uniform, not just part of it. So I don't know where all the scuttlebutt comes from. Is because she owns the rights to those uniforms. Houston had 26 years to get those rights back somehow, but they wanted to establish the Houston Texans when the Texans came in, which I understand, and didn't give much credence to the Houston Oilers, where Amy brought the former Oiler players under her umbrella there with the Titans, and we're all like a big family now, and we have a place to go for our reunion weekend, and she does an amazing job of hosting us every year for that reunion. So I feel good for the players who only played for the Oilers, because now they have a place that they can call home, where I played with other teams, so I had some other identities. But I think what she's doing is amazing. She's upgraded all the facilities there. She's got a new stadium in the works. So, she's done a great job as owner of the Tennessee Titans, no question about it, and I love her.
Warren, can I put you on the hot seat to ask you a tough question?
Yes, sir.
Titans, Texans in an AFC championship game, who are you rooting for?
I'm rooting for the Titans. The Titans, of course.
Is that even a hard question to answer?
No.
Okay,
No.
Super Bowl, Titans or Seahawks, who are you rooting for?
Ooh, that's a good one. I might have to plead the fifth on that one.
Uh-huh. Warren Moon is with us. So,
You're testing my allegiances now.
I want your thought on
I
this.
never played for the Texans.
You did play for the Chiefs, though. So you rooting for the Chiefs this week?
I'm rooting for the Chiefs.
When you left the Titans and there was a year of terribleness with Cody Carlson and then Steve McNair gets drafted, Floyd told me that one of the big things that was kind of underrated in Steve's development was the role that Neil O'Donnell played for Steve as almost like a translator with what the offensive coaches were asking him to do and kind of, what he was capable of doing. And so I look at Levis. Tannehill's going to leave as a free agent this year. So do you think it's important? Like, what are the qualities that are important in a backup for Will Levis to help him grow, or does it matter in your opinion?
No, it matters. First of all, he's got to know his role. The backup's got to know his role. If he's trying to get the job from the number one guy, if he's competing with him, there's going to be a problem there. But if he knows his role as a backup, his role is to be a mentor, his role is to be there if something happens, God forbid, to the starter. That's the first key right there, because if that guy knows what his role is, he's going to be more in tune to helping the young guy develop. If he's not, if he's trying to take his job from him, it's just not going to work, because he's not going to ever be as forthcoming with different advice that he can give a young guy. So I wish I would have had a veteran guy when I first came into the league to help me along the way, but it didn't happen. But if they could get somebody like that for Will next year, if Tannehill does leave, it would really be good for his development, because he still has a whole lot to learn. And if he can have somebody that's played the game, that's been through the battles, that knows how to prepare and all those different things, it'll really help him.
What do you think is the next step for the Titans?
I think they have to figure out what they're going to do with Derek on the offensive side of the ball. I'm sure that the new coach coming in, Brian Callahan, is getting his staff together right now, creating a philosophy, trying to create a culture, trying to create what their offense is going to be, and then also on the other side of the ball as well. So they've got to look at what their team is good at, what their team needs help at, and that's what they're going to have to look at in free agency and the draft. So there's a lot of things they have to get done, especially when you're making a whole coaching change like they are.
Last one for you. In Houston, and I'm sure the people of Houston want to know what you think all the time, even though, again, you didn't play for the Texans. Is this C.J. Stroud thing going to be like Peyton Manning was when he was in Indianapolis every single year to the Titans?
I don't know. I know C.J. is an amazing player, and what he did this year in his first year to go and win a playoff game was nobody expected that. And he should be the offensive rookie of the year. If he's not, I'll be really surprised. But they're off to a great start, and as they put pieces around him, they're going to be another team that is going to be hard to deal with. And they're in the same division as the Titans. So we're going to have to see C.J. Stroud for a long time. That's why Will Levis is going to have to step his game up in order to match what CJ is doing.
Warren Moon, he is the unofficial spokesman of the Houston Oilers alumni for the most part, it feels like. Great to have you by. Thanks for stopping by. And again, Warren is with Gear Up Tennessee. And for more information, go to NFLGearUp.org. I'm saying NFLAGearUp.org/Tennessee, and the NFL alumni is working with community organizations to educate people about shingle shots and to make them available to those who need them. Warren, thank you so much for stopping by, as always.
Thanks for having me on.
I will be sure to give Al Smith a hard time when he rolls by here later this week for you.
All right, thanks a lot. Tell Al I said hello. I'm sure I'll see him somewhere along the week, but thanks for having me on.
It would be impossible for you to not see him. Warren, as always. Warren Moon's great. Stillman and Company. We continue 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Studios, Super Bowl 58 Radio Row here in Vegas. And our coverage, as always, is presented by the Nashville Sheriff. The Nashville Sheriff is hiring correctional officers. Call 615-862-8170 or email kirk.hopkins@nashvillesheriff.gov. Can I just say this for the record? Because we're going to talk about what Rand Carthon said on the Titans podcast here in a second. But I really just want to say people were texting in about that interview with Warren Moon saying, Jared, great interview, great job. Let me say this. That was Warren. It was, Warren Moon's a Hall of Famer and he was a great quarterback but just listening to Warren talk about Will Levis and listening to him talk about how much respect he has for Amy Adams-Strunk and what he said about Derrick Henry, I don't know about you guys, but it got me excited when Warren Moon says, I'd really like to see Derrick Henry stay with the Titans, and I feel like the Titans can use Derrick Henry, and Derrick should. I'm like, you know what, Warren? You're right. You are right, Warren Moon. And then it gets me excited that maybe Derrick Henry might come back. But, again, great stuff there with Warren Moon here on the program, who is it feels like Warren Moon is now the spokesperson or the representative of the Houston Oilers days. Eddie George feels like the representative of the first era Titans. And I think Derrick Henry is probably going to be the representative that we think of this second era Titans. And so it was cool to sit down with Warren. So the Titans dropped a podcast yesterday, the official Titans podcast, where they sat down with Rand Carthon for 46 minutes. And I sat there. Ian, did I not text you yesterday? And did I not say, I really don't want to listen to this and then get mad about something? But it's my job and I got to listen to this stuff one way or another.
Suck it up.
So I knew in there that they were probably going to talk about the offseason. But what I made sure that I did, because every time I talk about Rand Carthon, everybody gets mad at me. And I'm tired of everybody being mad at me, which is something that over the years, no matter how many things I've pissed on, no matter how much people get angry, it's never really seemed to bother me as much as it's like this. Just every time I say anything, it's like, oh, Jared, you're so wrong. You're such a hater. It just drives me crazy. So I went into this with an open mind saying, hey, are there going to be some things in here, like some nuggets that I listen to, and I'm like, okay, I feel good about this, or I feel bad about that, and then really think about why. But then when I listened to it at the beginning, they talked about Rand Carthon not going to the Senior Bowl, and I was just so almost, I don't know if disappointed is the right word, but when I found out last week that he didn't go to the Senior Bowl, I said on air that, hey, I don't like it. And I know that I'm sure there's, an explanation in there somewhere, and people kept having their own, and it wasn't like Rand did a press conference to where he could have told us why, so this would be the closest thing a week later. But I said I didn't like it. I didn't go crazy about it. I didn't yell about it. I didn't scream about it. You know when I yell, you know when I scream. I wouldn't do any of that. But I didn't like it. And then people got mad, and then it became a thing, and so they spent 10 minutes of this 40-minute podcast talking about why he didn't go to the Senior Bowl. And it all boils down to this kind of claim that it was more important for him to be in Nashville handling the coaching search with Brian Callahan. Here's what Rand Carthon said on the official Titans podcast.
Why was it more important for Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan to be in Nashville last week rather than be in Mobile at the Senior Bowl?
Because we're still building the staff. Which is first and foremost, which is really important. Our job as scouts is to go out and find the players and help set the table. But it's also we need to have a direction, and what we want those players to look like, what type of schemes we want to run. And the only way we're able to do that is if we have coaches. And so I felt it was important for me to dedicate myself to Brian and be here and help him in any way possible. And the cool thing was he felt it was important for every coach that we may want to hire on the staff for me to get a chance to meet them, ask my questions for them to see if they're a culture fit for what we're trying to build here.
Okay. And I think a lot of people probably heard that and they said, great. Great. This is, yes, we needed a coaching staff, Jared. And all I'll say to that is I disagree. Like, I disagree with the concept of I can send my lieutenants and my scouts out to the Senior Bowl, and they can handle the Senior Bowl, and I will focus on the coaching staff with the head coach. And here's why I disagree. And again, it's not like that explanation is bullcrap, right? It's not like I think he's lying about that. I don't think he's lying. I think he's lied before, like when he lied about Bud Dupree, but I don't think he's lying here. I think he's telling the truth, that it was like, you know what, I'll stay back and I'll help with the coaching search, and, you know, you guys go out to the Senior Bowl. I disagree because I think players are more important than coaches. That's why. It boils down to, I think that finding the best players for the Tennessee Titans, I think it's more important than finding the best coaches. And I'll give you guys an example. What did you guys think of Mike Mularkey and Terry Robisky and that entire coaching staff that you hated? That's what I thought. And yet they got to the divisional round of the playoffs. Then they brought in a coach you liked in Mike Vrabel, and they went 9-7 and then 9-7 into the AFC title game. Players are more important than coaches. And the Senior Bowl is a very big and limited resource for organizations to use to be able to decide which players they want and which players they like. And while there are other resources to be able to decide what players you like, this is a pretty big one. Again, this is hands-on time. In fact, during that same podcast, I heard Rand talk about how, we'll be there next year, and it's important to be able to get to know the person and get to know the player and get to think about this. What's more important, your outside linebacker coach or your third-round draft choice? I think we all know the answer. It's the third-round draft choice. So time will tell if the Titans were right to do what they did. And Rand Carthon is the one who's going to have to live with the consequences of this, because every pick they make, his name is on. And there is no, that was Mike Vrabel's decision to draft that player. There is none of that this year, and everybody knows that. So the risk he's taking is saying, hey, I am going to put John Robinson scouts along with Anthony Robinson and Chad Brinker in charge of analyzing this resource that the NFL offers to all 32 clubs to be able to evaluate the next wave of players. Albeit, I don't think it's the best players. I think it's kind of the second best players. But third, fourth, fifth round picks, those do end up mattering, like Puka Nacua. And they said, Rand Carthon said, I'm more worried about, making sure that the culture fit is right with the coaching staff than I am making sure about the players. And the other reason I disagree with that is because if we're going to talk about what's more important to delegate, the discovery process of the players as opposed to analyzing the coaching staff and whether or not guys will be culture fits. And if I'm delegating, I'd rather delegate the coaching staff to Brian Callahan and me be more hands-on with my scouts about kind of what our mission is going to be this year, and looking at the players, seeing for myself their work habits, talking to them myself, and getting the information. Because, again, regardless of what my area scout tells me, when it comes to us in the third round with a pick we got to make, and everybody say, I think he's a good kid, and I might trust that area scout. But again, is it the same as you feeling in your heart that you know that that's a good kid? And so it's not the end of the world. And I wasn't mad about it last week. I got mad about people saying that, you're making a big deal about this year. I didn't make a big deal. I just said, look, I just didn't like it. And we had no explanation because Rand Carthon doesn't do press conferences anymore. And so it's like, okay, why did it happen? Okay, you sit down. Why did you not go? Coaching staff. Okay. That's his reason. I disagree with it. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. A lot of people want to weigh in on this. Boy, Chris Sanders was mad today about this.
Yeah, he was.
He was mad.
At you.
But here's what bothered me about and again, I love Chris with all my heart, but Chris was talking about how he had gone through the process, right? Like, oh, I've been to the Senior Bowl. I've played in the Senior Bowl. I know what that. The guy who hired Ran into personnel in Atlanta came on our show yesterday, what he had to say about it. And again, that's kind of another eye-opener to me of like, is this idea of the GM not doing that, is that really a good idea? We'll hit that next with your phone. Stillman and Company. FanDuel Sportsbook is my official sportsbook app. That's right. If you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday will be all about scoring the best seat on the couch, grabbing football snacks, and placing those bets. That's right. Again, my favorite is the national anthem. Always pick the over. Because whoever's singing it is going. Do we even know who's singing it? I think we do. I just don't. I don't keep up with that stuff. But whoever's singing it, I'm sure that they will be singing it, and they will want their TV time, and they will take as long as they can. Plus, I think anybody like Chris Sanders who's taking San Francisco's crazy, I'm not betting against Mahomes. FanDuel has so many ways for you to end the season with a W or 2 or 3. Not only can you bet on who will win Super Bowl 58, but FanDuel also has bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points will be scored, and so much more. And new customers join today, and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/JGM to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/JGM and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. 21 and older and present in Tennessee. $10 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets which expire 7 days after receipt. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call the Tennessee Red Line at 1-800-889-9789.
Look, I'm a big believer in sniffing the proverbial armpits because you need to be up close and see these guys move around. So I understand that. However, there is more of what you're talking about, Rand's decision to do that in this newer wave of general managers, right? He was with Les Snead. Les Snead always did that. I don't even think Les Snead went to the combine.
Mm-hmm.
There's ability to see it on television, et cetera, et cetera. So everyone has a different idea of how they want to utilize their time most effectively. And to be honest with you, sometimes you go down to the Senior Bowl and you're like, man, there's a lot of time in between. And am I really doing what I need to do? I had to do a ton of work, in my own room in between there. We were doing deals. There was a lot going on, and I would pop over and watch the practice and then come back to my room. You can argue both sides. Is it the best use of your time to be a GM there or not?
So what do you think?
I like it personally. Okay. I want to be there. I don't want to be there all the way through. I would usually go for 2 or 3 days, the beginning of the week, and make sure I got a feel for everyone. I saw everyone, and then I went back and watched the video. I needed to see them live.
There you go. That was Thomas Dimitroff on our show yesterday. Former GM of the Falcons, ran into personnel, and I love it. Here's this whole breakdown. GMs, they don't go as much anymore, and they, there's so much time in between, and there's this and this, it's not that big of a deal. What do you think? Oh, I'd go. By the way, I saw Thomas this morning, Ian. We were chatting for a while. I tell you, he is a nice freaking guy.
Seems like it, yeah.
And he wants us to give Rand a second chance.
Yes, he does. Especially you. Mostly you.
Well, here's what I want to say. And I want this to be out there before I get to your phones. I am open to being wrong. Not only am I open to being wrong, I hope that I am wrong. I'm just not going to assume that I am wrong because it is convenient for me to assume that I'm wrong because, quite frankly, I want the Titans in this game. I want the Titans in this game next year. You never know what's going to happen in the future, but I'm planning on going to New Orleans next year for this. And I want the Titans in this game. Is it likely that the Titans will be here? You know the answer to that. But, I want them to be here, and the only way that they're going to be here anytime soon is if Rand does a good job. But I'm not going to assume when I see missteps, just like I look at Adam Peters, and I think this is about San Francisco as much as anything else. That Adam Peters gets the job in Washington and immediately bungles the coaching search. It's like, dude, you've been living under a rock? You can't put all your eggs in a basket if you're not ready to hatch the eggs, I think. Let's go to your phones as promised, 615-737-1025. Mike from Nashville says, if Rand was in Mobile, you would have said Rand is down there and he needs to be up here getting the coaching staff in order. Not true. Because, again, and I think coaches are important. And I think a head coach's ability to hire assistant coaches is very important. It's one of the things I really like about Brian Callahan as compared to Mike Vrabel is that Mike Vrabel didn't have a lot of experience in the NFL. So when he got a head coaching job, and it's not his fault that he got a head coaching job so early, but when he got a head coaching job, it was like, well, I don't really know a lot of people, so I'm going to have to hire with the limited amount of people that I know. Whereas Brian Callahan's been around, so the assumption is that he would know more people. But again, I still think that players are more important than coaches. And I will forever think that. And it goes back to, I always bring up the right tackle story, or I always talk about the drafting a guard in the top 10. There are certain things that old man said to me that just stick with me. And I remember one day during Ask the GM, somebody called in and asked him the question, what would he rather have, the best scouting staff or the best coaching staff? And he said he'd rather have the best scouting staff. And that has always stood out to me. So the players are always more important to me than the coaches. Barry Switzer won a Super Bowl. The players are always more important. Texter says, chill out, Jared. As Chris Sanders said, there are multiple opportunities to look at the players before the draft. However, there is only one opportunity to participate the initial hiring of a coaching staff. In my opinion, he chose the right priority in this unique situation with a new first-time head coach, and he will be in Mobile next year. It was odd, how much they talked about, oh, yeah, next year we'll be there. Next year will matter. Next year, have you learned with this ownership that if you don't do well this year, there might not be a next year? This time last year, if I had sat you down and I had said, I just want you to know something. 1 year from now, Jared, you'll be in Las Vegas, I would have said, of course. And 1 year from now, Mike Vrabel will not be the coach of the Titans. I would have said, what? No. So let's not start planning ahead to next year, because that's not how the NFL works. It's like Chad Brinker talking about how the analytics department is a startup. And, in 3 years, it'll be way different than it is now. I'm like, 3 years? Like, what are you, 3 years? You think you got Jerry Stackhouse's job security talking about 3 years? Well, I mean, come on now. No guarantee of 3 years. You better get if analytics are going to matter around here, you better get the analytics up, and you better get them up now, and they better work, because you don't have 3 years. And I don't know about you guys. I'm not doing 3 years of losing. Texture says, how do you not know that Reba is singing the national anthem? Also, if I was betting, I'd take the under. She will sing and get out of there. Reba! Can I tell you something? I'm not a big old country music fan. So, like Reba, Dolly Parton, all the kind of like the old school country singers, George Jones and Hank Williams Sr. and Hank Williams Jr. And I'm not a big old school country music guy. I will say one thing, though. R.I.P. to Toby Keith. That was sad news yesterday. But good for Reba. Texter says, see, this is what drives me crazy. Somebody says, so if the Titans don't draft all superstar rookies this year, it'll be because Rand wasn't at the Senior Bowl. I didn't say that. Everybody just wants me to be so extreme all the time. It's like they want me to say it's the best decision. It's the worst decision. And I don't think it's the worst decision. And I don't think I do think going would have been the best decision. But it's not that big of a deal. I just disagree. That's okay. What will be told in time is whether or not they draft any good players. But there are steps along the way that gives us an idea that, hey, this is going to work out or this isn't going to work out. And I've seen too many things around here that make me fear that this is not going to work out. And I don't want that to happen, because let's just say this. I want Will Levis. I said this before Will Levis took a snap for the Tennessee Titans. When Justin Herbert signed that $250 gajillion deal last year, I said, I want the Titans to give Will Levis that contract. Because if the Titans end up giving Will Levis a franchise quarterback contract, it will mean that the long search for a franchise quarterback post Steve McNair is over. That's what I want. It's over, and you got a quarterback, and it's like Coach Billick said, you can't win in today's game without that guy, and so if you give Levis that contract, you've got that guy. Well, if you fire the general manager after Levis has a second year, that means you didn't do well in your second year? That new general manager is probably going to go get another quarterback. Just like how the New England Patriots are probably going to go get another quarterback, even though they're the ones. Now, I don't know if Mac Jones would have ever been good or not, but they ruined him. Any chance he would have had, they screwed it up. And I don't want the Titans to be in that situation because, again, all I want is for us to be right here on Radio Row one day, and for this giant banner in front of me that's got Brock Purdy and Deebo Samuel and Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce to have Will Levis and who would be the second player, Ian, in this fictitious Titans make the Super Bowl, it would be great scenario. I got it. Skoronski. That'd be the second guy. And then all you guys can get on me. But I'll be happy because my team's in the Super Bowl. 615-737-1025. So Fitz was supposed to join us here at 4:30, but Charles Robinson, for some reason, keeps delaying their taping, so I don't know. He's supposed to be off there at 4:30, and then Charles Robinson, their podcast, I don't know. So he may be here with us. He may not be. There is something that I do want to get to that I feel like me and Brian Callahan are alone on. So if we don't have Fitz, we'll get to that. If not, we'll have Fitz. And, of course, more of your phones at 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in here on the program. Again, that's 615-737-1025 live from Radio Row twice daily. That's right. They have your chance to win a dream trip to Italy. And after my luck at the blackjack table last night, I may need Twice Daily's help if I ever want to go to Italy. That's right. It is easy. All you have to do is join the Twice Daily Rewards program to purchase a made-to-order Italian sub, and you'll be entered in the Twice Daily Sweepstakes to win an Italian trip of a lifetime. Every sub purchase is a chance to win. So you can place an Italian sub mobile order as well, and you get double the entries. Visit Twice Daily today for a chance to win a dream trip to experience the breathtaking beauty and rich history of Italy. And again, download the Twice Daily app and join the rewards program. You'll save money with every single visit, especially if you're somebody like me and you are always stopping in at a Twice Daily. That's right. Go to twicedaily.com/sweepstakes for more info. Twice Daily, fresh all day. You're the quarterback. What do you want more? The dynamic star receiver or the left tackle for 10 years you stick out there and never have to worry
I'll take the left tackle.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. I think that that's a critical position. If you can find a great one and develop him and not have to worry about your blind side every time you drop back 5 steps or 7 steps, I think that's really important. I think that the foundation of a good offensive line is that left tackle. A guy that is your most athletic, your best pass protector, and I think that would be a great place to start. I think there's other ways to attack the wide receiver position. I mean, losing A.J. Brown was critical.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was just you give away your best player, and he goes and is having great success in Philadelphia. I don't want to criticize what's happened in the past, but I think those are positions of need. But I think I'd start with the left tackle.
Rich Gannon on our show yesterday. And let me just say this. I was surprised, right? Because I sat down with Brian Callahan. Look, I know I took one of these personality tests years ago, like the 16 personalities. Is that one of them? I think it is. I took one of these personality tests years ago, and it talked about like what my personality is and, and it said that I was a natural debater. And when I hear everybody on Twitter in Titanland just talk about, we need Joe Alt, I don't want to hear anything but Joe Alt at left tackle. Joe Alt, Joe Alt, Joe Alt. I just play a little devil's advocate of saying, hey, man, you had Roma Dunze out there and he was the man, or if you had Brock Bowers out there and he was the man, or if you had Marvin Jr. or Malik Neighbors. I love Malik Neighbors. If you're able to draft one of those guys and put them out there, like you got a superstar receiver, you can do what the Chiefs do, go get Donovan Smith to go play left tackle, and you can live. And so then when I sat down with Brian Callahan and I asked him about the Chase Sewell thing, and he was like, I was on the side of Jamar Chase because I believe in the premium touchdown scorer over the non-touchdown scorer. I thought, yes, finally, somebody in the seat right here of sanity with me, Jared Stillman. And we've been here. And we asked Rich Gannon, quarterback, and Rich Gannon says, give me the left tackle. An hour ago, we asked Warren Moon, Hall of Fame quarterback. He said, give me the left tackle. Yesterday, we asked Solomon Wilcots in Cincinnati. Solly is a Cincy guy. And he said, give me, and so I'm figuring he's going to say, oh, yeah, you got to go get a Jamar Chase. He said, give me the tackle. So I'm starting to think, Ian, that I'm the only guy out here, me and Brian Callahan, and I am assuming how Brian Callahan feels.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but I think we're the only two guys out here that are like, give me the receiver
Feels
over
like
give me the tackle.
It's starting to feel that way. Yeah.
I mean, that's not a good place to be in.
Well,
I mean, I want my opinions confirmed.
Being on the same side as the head coach is good.
Well, yeah. I guess there is that. But I want my opinions confirmed. I want them affirmed. I don't want them challenged. And so then when I see a guy like Rich Gannon say that, I'm like, maybe these quarterbacks, and I'm thinking about it again, because I asked the question to Warren Moon about how, like, if you're in Levis's shoes and it's draft me the left tackle or draft me the wide receiver, which one do you want? And again, like a guy like Gannon or Warren, they have the experience that Levis doesn't have to know, hey, I've played behind bad lines and I played behind good lines and I played with Jerry Rice and Tim Brown and I played in the run and shoot and I played with great players. And they both were like, give me the tackle. And I almost wonder if it's because the quarterback has nothing to do with the tackle. Like the quarterback says hike and he may, set the protections, but the tackle's the one who's got to block Lawrence Taylor, right? Like the tackle's the one. I mean, Rich was talking to me yesterday off the air about Javon Curse and about how he got to the line of scrimmage and was like, all right, where's Javon Curse? By the way, Javon is going to join us, I think, tomorrow on the program. But it was like, okay, where's Javon? It's like, okay, Javon's over there. All right, let me stay away from him. Where at receiver, I think maybe, and again, I've never played quarterback, so I have no idea about this. I could be talking out of my ass right now. But at quarterback, I do wonder if it's like, hey, I can throw this guy open, or I can get the ball to a decent enough receiver. I don't have to have A.J. Brown. I'd like to have A.J. Brown, but I don't have to have A.J. Brown. Or I can get a good player, but I got to be protected. And the one thing that I am starting to lead up on a little bit is that while the Bengals got to the Super Bowl with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase as their quarterback and receiver, the argument can be made that they lost that Super Bowl because they couldn't protect, and that Burrow has been hurt 2 out of the 4 years he's been in the NFL.
They all keep talking about longevity, making them keeps them in the game, keeps them upright, feeling better, making it through the whole season, like that kind of stuff. So
last night I've got this theory that, it's like a kind of a football guru kind of thing, or I would say guru is probably not the right word, but like a historical football thing that I get really into. Like I'll always talk. I will always talk to the Titans PR director, Robbie Bourne, about this stuff, about like these like historical football things. And one of them is at the 2019 Super Bowl, they unveiled the top 100, right? And I think there were 10 quarterbacks. And I always take Sammy Baugh and Otto Graham out of it because I'm too young, for the leather helmet stuff. But then after that, it was Staubach and Montana and Marino and Elway and Brady and Manning and Favre. And I don't think I left anybody out. And I'm like, if we redid it today, and that was 4 years ago, if we redid it today, I'm thinking we have to kick Favre out and kick Marino out and put Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers in. And so the reason that I bring all that up, is because the guy that I used to work for who owns the Kansas City station, we were talking last night about this, about, who to kick out and who to put in. And he was talking about, like, where Manning ranks on that list. And he put John Elway, like, number 3 behind Brady and Mahomes. And he was like, just because I've just seen John Elway kill this team so many times. And I was talking about how, like, I feel like Joe Burrow is the only other guy in the game today who has the potential to be as good as those other players. And then in my head, I'm like, but Joe Burrow does get hurt all the time. And I know a torn ACL is a torn ACL, but I don't think that was a non-contact torn ACL. I think that was his knee got screwed up because they couldn't protect him ACL. And then I also think about the fact that if Ryan Tannehill doesn't just gift wrap the Bengals 3 interceptions in that game, then he gets sacked 9 times. It doesn't matter that Jamar Chase is on his team. They lose. And so that Super Bowl run, now again, we can always play if this had happened or if they had another quarter or whatever, we can always do that. But I don't know. Maybe I'm starting to get talked into the tackle. Like I'm thinking that might be a real possibility here. And this should be something that, if it's like, hey, let's just take the resources, right? Get the tackle. You've got the left guard. Get the center. Pay for a right guard. Pay for a right tackle, or draft another tackle, or Bill Callahan makes Dylan Radins a starting right tackle, whatever. Say that happens, and then we don't have to worry about the offensive line. Then can the Titans in future years say, all right, now we're at a spot where we can go out and use the draft picks to go trade for an emerging star receiver? And that's, I guess, kind of how I think about it. 615-737-1025 is our phone number if you want to weigh in. 615-737-1025. We will get to some of your phones here on the program. We're not missing Jared versus Joe just because we're at the Super Bowl. Like, I want everybody to know that we will absolutely have a Jared versus Joe showdown today, as we always do. 615-737-1025 on our program if you want to weigh in here today. And again, we are live out at Radio Row at Super Bowl 58, presented by Nashville Sheriff. Tune into the Chase and Big Joe show tomorrow morning between 9 and 11 a.m. for details on how you can win a pair of tickets to see Def Leppard and Journey with the Steve Miller Band at Nissan Stadium. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Do you think if the Titans are in that spot where there's an elite receiver available and an elite tackle, that they need to take the tackle or they need to take the receiver? Because the line's been a mess.
It's hard. And I'll tell you this. I think either way, as long as they prove to be what we think they're going to be, I think you've made the right decision. And here's what I say. Jamar Chase, obviously we love him in Cincinnati. I would not have done anything differently. But had you taken Penei Sewell, look at how far he's helped change their organization, right? We always say touchdowns follow blocking, not the other way around.
And I think we've learned that in Nashville.
You got to have – and if you get 3 guys on that offensive line who are first-round picks, you're going to be really good. You're going to score a lot of touchdowns. I still can look at this. In the Super Bowl, they're playing the Rams. Joe Burrow is ready to hit Jamar Chase. He's about to beat Jalen Ramsey. Bam, he goes down. Game over. They still need the tackle. As we sit here today, they still need that player. Joe Burrow has been sacked, hit more than any other quarterback in the NFL. So whatever we can talk about all the touchdowns that Jamar Chase, he is a star. But what has it done to help with the longevity of Joe Burrow? Not a whole lot. What has it done to help win a championship? This close, but you didn't win it. So the argument still remains. I don't think they made the wrong pick by taking Jamar Chase. But I can tell you, Bill Callahan, the father, is going to be in there. Look, we need to shore up this offensive line. I don't care who we get at wide receiver.
There you go. That was Solomon Wilcots. And Cincinnati guy. He's like, nah, go with the tackle. Warren Moon, go with the tackle. Even elite wide receiver, elite tackle, go with the tackle. And let me say this, as much as we talk about Cincinnati and how they got Jamar Chase, and that's great, in that same draft, Detroit got Sewell, who, as Field Yates said earlier today, might be the best player on their team, might be the best tackle in the NFL. And they did draft Amon-Ra St. Brown later in that draft. And Field was talking about how it feels very comfortable that if the Titans use their second rounder on a receiver, they can get a good receiver, whereas they may not be able to get a good tackle in the second round. They may have to trade back in the first if they want to get a good day one starting tackle. So keep that in mind. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com at 615-737-1025 here on the program. Donovan says, Jared versus Joe is my favorite radio every week. Good. That's coming up next. Texter says, does the tackle at 7 have to be an immediate Pro Bowler like the guard at 11? I'm not getting the sense that these top guys are at that level. I think immediate Pro Bowler, no. Better than Taylor Lewan was his first 2 years, yes. Like Taylor Lewan, his first year was kind of like a swing tackle early on, and then he got put in there because they had Michael Roos and Michael Lohr at the 2 tackle spots. The second year, Lewan was the left tackle, but he wasn't very good. Like, remember the Jacksonville game where they didn't run up the field and Derek came on the air and just ripped him a new one, and Lewan even said that it hurt his feelings. And, I mean, there was a lot of talk with the Titans with that number 1 pick and Laramie Tunsil looking like the number 1 player on the board. There was a lot of talk about, do you draft this tackle and then move Lewan to right tackle? Do you draft this tackle and trade Lewan? Like, what do you do? And so it wasn't until year 3 when Lewan really, started to pop as a starting tackle. That being said, Lewan those first 2 years had Bob Bostad. That's it. Bob Bostad was his offensive line coach. And then they got Russ Grimm, who was a good offensive line coach. And with Russ Grimm, that helped Lewan pop. And now you got Bill Callahan. You need, if you're going to take a left tackle high in a draft, he needs to be the first year a starting tackle, good starting tackle. And then after that needs to start looking at the Pro Bowl. But I'm not, and I have no idea if Joe Alt is Jonathan Ogden or not. But I'm not saying that with that 7th pick, he needs to be Jonathan Ogden. With the 11th pick on a guard, he needs to be Bruce Matthews. Jared from Spring Hill says, Bowers or trade. Jared from Spring Hill loves Bowers. He loves Bowers as much as Bowers likes the Titans. Craig says, I usually agree with you, but as much as we complained about the offensive line last year and how bad they were, it wouldn't have mattered if the Titans had a prime Jerry Rice. Well, Was the Titans' offensive line last year as bad as the Bengals' offensive line? Or I shouldn't say as bad. It probably was as bad. Was it worse than the Bengals' offensive line a couple of years ago that they got to the Super Bowl with? Probably. Texture says, sign Tyron Smith in free agency and sign Mike Evans. Get the best wide receiver in the draft because it is a league of mismatches. You know, Baker was walking around here earlier today, but it is pretty fascinating as to what's going to happen in Tampa Bay as far as Baker and his contract. Because if they don't get a deal done, then they have to franchise Baker. If they franchise Baker, that means they can't franchise Mike Evans. If Mike Evans hits free agency, will there be a team that will Christian Kirk him, where they will pay him so much money that he will have to go to that team? That's the question. Like, he'll have to go to that team. One texter says, take a poll of all the front office people at the Super Bowl. Did your GM go to the Senior Bowl? We need a baseline. If 30 of them went, then we know we have a problem. If 15 of them went, then it may not be a problem when it comes to the Rand Carthon at the Senior Bowl. So those people I don't think are here. And if they are here, they're not running in the same place as I am. They're going to much, much more important and nicer places. I don't think they go. But, I mean, there were enough GMs there to have one of them tell Diana Rossini that Vrabel is too big to be a head coach, which is also still, I mean, I think that's the stupidest thing I've heard this week. And I mean, I think that's so stupid that she would write that. I said to somebody last night, Ian, if I came on the air and I said, I talked to a general manager who told me that Mike Vrabel was too large to be a good head coach in the NFL, or he's too intimidating to others, I think I would have gotten laughed out of the city.
Maybe, yeah.
Diana says it, and it's like, what do we make of it? I'm like, what have we made of everything that Diana says about Vrabel? But I don't know. 615-737-1025 is our phone number if you want to weigh in. Again, that's 615-737-1025. Joe Rexrode is going to join us. We're at the Super Bowl, I know, but we are not going to miss Jared versus Joe. We are going to get into it. And we haven't had the opportunity to get to this today, but we do need at some point in Jared versus Joe to discuss Joe's favorite basketball coach. You know who I'm talking about. Jerry Stackhouse.
Joey Stackhouse.
We're going to have to talk about that because I watched a little bit of the game last night, but all I saw was that they gave up about 100 gazillion points and lost to a Kentucky team that had no fight at home last Saturday. And so I'm sure that'll be a part of that. Jared versus Joe's next, live from Radio Row. It's Super Bowl 58 at Stillman and Company on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Spring Hill Heating and Cooling Studios, Radio Row at Super Bowl 58. That's right, live in Las Vegas, presented by the Nashville Sheriff. The Nashville Sheriff is hiring correctional officers. Call 615-862-8170 or email kirk.hopkins@nashvillesheriff.gov. So we are here at Radio Row, but that does not mean that we are going to miss Jared versus Joe. That is everybody's favorite segment. I mean, all throughout the week. Joe Rexroad is with us. Caroline is here. Caroline, hello.
Hello, how we doing?
Outstanding. By the way, Field Yates was on earlier today. I don't know if Nick passed along the message, but he wanted to say hello to you.
Oh, Field, he's the best.
It was an excellent interview. Joe Rexroad is with us. Joe, I just want you to know, there's about a 0% chance of me being able to make your show at 7 a.m. Central Time on Friday. Just want you to know
I say you do. I say you pull the all-nighter, man. That's what I just told Charles Robinson today. I just pull the all-nighter. You'll be fine.
Hey, Charles has already screwed up my show today. I don't need him screwing up your show, too.
Wait, what do you do?
So I guess he went to some like PA something or another, so it pushed Fitz's taping back. So Fitz ended up not coming on our show, which is fine because I complained about something else anyways. But it was all based off of Charles' time. I mean, I'm operating on Charles' time now. I don't know if I could do that. All right. Let's get right to the meat and potatoes of this. It's Jared versus Joe.
Jared Stillman versus Joe Rexroad. Now on Stillman and Company.
On ESPN.
102.5 The Game.
Jared versus Joe is presented by Pella Windows and Doors of Nashville. Caroline, go.
All right, so I heard Rich Gannon on your show yesterday. Great interview, Jared. And Warren Moon said, Solomon Wilcott said on your show, all of them say, hey, take the left tackle at number 7 instead of the elite wide receiver. Is that the right decision? Joe, you go first.
I have no idea. But the right decision is after you've done all the evaluating and you've gone through everything, if you have that choice, if you have the choice of Joe Alt and Brock Bowers or Joe Alt and Malik Neighbors, whatever it is, if you believe that Bowers or Neighbors is a better player, is a better chance of having a great NFL player, then yeah, you don't let need win the day. You don't let need win the day. You have to go with who is the best football player that you can pick right now. You have to. The Titans have so many holes, so many needs. They're not going to Super Bowl next year anyway. Yes, they need to quickly fix this offensive line and get up to speed and protect their most precious commodity, Will Levis, and they're going to do a lot of things to try to make that happen. And to me, like a Joe Alt seems to make perfect sense. But you get the best football player that you can possibly get. If you believe that's Malik Neighbors or Brock Bowers or Roma Dunze or whatever, then do that. You do not tether. Right now, I could never answer, yes, you take the left tackle regardless. That's someone who I think doesn't understand how player. Like, I think any GM who did that would be a bad GM. I think that's teams that go by need like that end up in big trouble.
Yeah, I mean, let's use like the 0 to 100 scale. If Malik Neighbors is a 95 and Joe Alt is a 90, then that doesn't make sense to take the 90 over the 95 when you really need everything on your team anyways. I am starting, though, to lean to the idea, and let's just make, for argument's sake, let's say that they're even, right? That Malik Neighbors is a 95 and Joe Alt is a 95 and Brock Bowers is a 95 and we're splitting hairs. It's Chase and Sewell. Both guys are perennial All-Pros. I'm starting to be talked into the tackle over the receiver. Whereas I am kind of like Brian Callahan. I prefer the touchdown scorer than I would the tackle. But after just seeing like Rich Gannon and Warren Moon, both quarterbacks, kind of look at me like, yeah, just take the tackle if he's good. And I don't want to have to worry about left tackle. I don't want to. And I'm like, okay. But then supposedly this is a very deep tackle draft. So could they trade back to 14 and get another tackle and then get another pick or something? And the more I think about it, the more I'm like, you know what? If Joe Alt's really that good, and if Bill Callahan is really that good of an offensive line coach, you might just be better off taking the left tackle and telling Amy, like, hey, you're going to, with this offensive line coach, in 3 years, you're going to have to pay about $200 million to your left tackle and left guard. That is if Bill Callahan gets Skoronski right, which I hope that he would. You're going to have to pay $200 million, but you'll never have to worry about the left side of the line again. That is very appealing to me. I am starting to get talked into if they're even left tackle over receiver. And again, let's not act like the Titans don't have an immediate need at wide receiver. I mean, they absolutely have a huge need at wide receiver, but I'm starting to get talked into the tackle position.
And also, what's the likelihood that the Titans have, I think, can we all agree it's the 3 receivers at the top, Marvin Harrison, Rome Odunze, and Malik Neighbors? Like, what are the odds that the Titans have them all graded the same?
Not very high.
Yeah. So it's not just the theory of if there's a receiver there or Joe Alt there. It's like if it's the receiver or Joe Alt. But TD said that he thinks Joe Alt is the most pro-ready prospect in this draft.
See, that's great, but are we thinking, as much as I'm jealous and I want the Titans to be in the Super Bowl next year, like, do we think the Titans are going to be in the Super Bowl next year?
No.
So it doesn't matter, like, if he's ready today or not, right? Like, it just matters if
you still need a left tackle
today. That is true.
Yeah,
But-
you need to protect your quarterback immediately. So, but at the same time, there are some people who think Fashanu has a higher ceiling. So, how much higher of a ceiling do you think he has? I mean, what's the difference? It seems like the higher floor is Alt for sure. But it's so much information to come. But I agree in general that if it really is equal, basically, then it would be hard for me to pass up the left tackle.
And just the idea of if he's a really, really good left tackle and you pair him with a really, really good offensive line coach, like, could that give you a Hall of Fame caliber left tackle like a Jonathan Ogden or something like that? And I mean, again, this is all, we have no idea, but again, that's just kind of what I'm thinking about that being a possibility if they go with it. I'm getting talked into it because at the beginning when everybody on Twitter was like, hey, we need Joe Alt. I don't want to hear anything else except Joe Alt. I'm like, that is ridiculous talk in January. It's also ridiculous talk, period. You're telling me that if, Rome Odunze is the next Jamar Chase, you don't want him and then you have to play against him? So I've been thinking about that, but I am starting to get talked into the left tackle, especially when Warren Moon was like, I know that I got to play 23 years in the NFL because I had Mike Munchak and Bruce Matthews, and I'm like, yes, you did. I'm like, yes, you did. Caroline, what's next?
All right, Joe, I'm sorry. Excuse me. Jared, you go first with this one. While we're talking about the draft, you bring up Brock Bowers. Made headlines today. Told PFT, I want to play for the Titans, which I appreciated your follow-up, Jared, when he essentially said, I want to go to Nashville because I like the Southeast and I like trucks.
That's why he liked Auto Trader, because they're giving him a free truck.
Like, he's going to need a free truck when he's a top 10 pick in the draft. Could you justify the Titans taking a non-premier position at 7 when they have so many needs at premier positions?
Yes, I could. And I will tell you why. Because the 2 teams that are playing in the Super Bowl right now have the 2 best tight ends in the NFL. And when I think of tight end, I think that, Mark Andrews is a great tight end. And if Mark Andrews was on the board, the next Mark Andrews with the 7th overall pick, I would not entertain it. I would not be interested. I would not even think about it. But I think that there's a separate class for Kelsey and Kittle and Gronk and Shannon Sharp. And I think Bowers might have the potential to be in that group. And those guys, even though they played tight end, they were the best receiver on their team. And so I look at Brock Bowers when we talk about the 3 receivers, and I'm like, I really consider it the 4 receivers because Bowers, he talked to me today, they put him in the slot at Georgia. Like Trevor said yesterday that he can play slot he can play, run the slot like a receiver. He can run like a running back with the ball in his hands, that he's not the traditional good tight end. I think he might be a class better than that. Like, again, that rarefied air of Kelsey, Kittle, Shannon Sharp, Gronk. That being said, we were told Kyle Pitts was going to be that, and Kyle Pitts might be a fine player, but he's not that. I would consider Brock Bowers because I see him as more than just a tight end.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think Brock Bowers might end up being a great player in this league. And for as great as Kyle Pitts was at Florida that year before the draft, I mean, he was a big player. He's a talented player. There's no doubt. I mean, he is a talented tight end in this league, but he was not then what Brock Bowers was this past year at Georgia. Like you said, I didn't hear the interview, but I mean, absolutely. You think about the Florida game. I mean, basically, it came down to like just your entire offense is lining him in the slot a lot, and just he's your guy. Just throw it to him, man, zone, whatever it is. I don't care. He's going to make the play for you. He's special. And so I don't care about the non-premium position thing. If you have a player like that, if you can have a generational tight end, I don't know that he'll be that, but I think he might be. He has the look of someone who might be. I'm all for that if you have that opportunity.
The thing that I was thinking about, though, is that Gronk was a second-round pick. Shannon Sharp, I think, was an eighth-round pick. You know, back when there used to be an eighth round out of Savannah State. I think that might be right. Kelsey, I think, was a fourth-round pick, and Kittle was a fifth-round pick. And so is tight end a position where like, we look at Brock Bowers and we say, okay, 7 overall, but the greatest tight ends, none of those guys are first-round picks.
Well, what about Antonio Gates and Tony Gonzalez, two guys that have to be in any discussion of the greatest tight ends? I believe both are first-round pick, I think.
So last night I was with my old boss who owns a Louisville station, also owns a Kansas City station, and we were talking about tight ends, and he was talking about the difference between Kelsey and Gonzalez, and he was like, the most memorable play of Tony Gonzalez's career was that out-of-bounds play against the Broncos in the, the AFC title game or the divisional round or something, and I'm like, man, that's true. Tony Gonzalez, it never feels like I can remember, like, oh, yeah, remember when Tony Gonzalez owned that game and took that game over? And so I don't put Gonzalez in that group.
He wasn't on the same team. He wasn't, but he wasn't on these levels. He didn't have Patrick Mahomes throwing the ball. He didn't have what Kelsey has. And I'm not taking anything away from Kelsey, but, Tony Gonzalez was one of the greatest tight ends to play football. Come on.
Shannon Sharp won a Super Bowl. Trent Dilfer as quarterback took a ball in the AFC title game like 99 yards for a touchdown. Gonzalez doesn't have a play like that. Gronk, how many times did Gronk make, the game-winning catch in a divisional round playoff game or that drive against the Rams in Atlanta in the Super Bowl? Like, I just don't. I'm not putting Tony Gonzalez there.
And Gronk was not a first-round pick, correct?
Second-round pick.
Second round.
Who?
Gronk.
Yeah. Yeah. See, you're putting too much on what team success was for an individual player, especially a tight end. You do that too much with quarterbacks, let alone this position. You're talking about a guy who. What did he end up with? 15,000 receiving yards. 1,300 receptions. First ballot Hall of Famer, first team All-Pro 6 times. Come on. Come on, man.
Do you think Laporta is a tight end, or do you think he's going to be in this, hybrid receiver, tight end, superstar role?
Laporta's going to be a really good tight end, but I think he's going to be like in the Andrews tier. Very excellent player, but not that top crust.
More Jared
Why
versus
is Kyle Pitts not doing more? Sorry, excuse me. Why is Kyle Pitts not very good? Is it simply because of the quarterback situation?
Well, everybody blames Arthur Smith, but I think Arthur Smith's a good coach, and I think Arthur Smith's a good coach for tight ends. So I don't know why he would stink if Arthur Smith was his coach, but
not that would deter me from drafting Brock Bowers, but I am just curious.
Atlanta, they're mad about London, Robinson, and Pitts not getting the ball enough. Like, they all underwhelmed. So I got to think QB first.
I just can't. I didn't watch Atlanta, but I just can't think Arthur is a schlub. Like that Arthur's some bozo that would purposely not give the ball to great players. When I watched Arthur turn around and give the ball to the two best players on the team a gazillion times.
But didn't they, against the Titans, didn't they run a trick play where one tight end threw a touchdown pass to another tight end, and neither of those tight ends were Kyle Pitts?
Did that happen?
I want to say so.
Yeah, it's odd on the
that
Kyle
sounds
Pitts
familiar.
thing. I'm not a Kyle Pitts guy for whatever reason. All right, more Jared versus Joe on the other side. We are live out here at Radio Row at Super Bowl 58. Stillman and Company continues 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Jared versus Joe is presented by Pella Windows and Doors of Nashville. So Sports Illustrated set is right behind me. And as I was sitting here during the break, just kind of just wandering into space, it's been a long day, saw Jerry Rice come by. He's sitting down with Sports Illustrated right behind me. He has the slickest Gucci pad leather sneakers I have ever seen in my entire life. And Caroline, you know I don't care about those things.
You really do not.
And so when I'm like, I really wanted to be like, hey, Jerry Rice, would you like to come join Jared versus Joe and give us your thoughts? But I guess Jerry Rice is busy. Caroline, go ahead.
All right, there's been a lot of agreeing here on the program. Feels a little bit uncomfortable. Let me dig into my bag of tricks. Joe, Vandy got that butt whooped.
You can say ass
last
on this
night against
show.
Kentucky. Well, I chose to say butt instead. Got that butt whooped. They've been getting that butt whooped a whole lot this season. Is it now time to fire Jerry Stackhouse?
Oh, man, that's a tough one. If this is the bag, you got to reach deeper. I mean, I think we've kind of...
Is this a tough one?
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
that in and of itself is a hot take, Joe.
I don't have some problem. Like if Candace Lee comes out tomorrow and says, thank you, Jerry, you're fired. I'm not outraged by it, sure.
But you think he's a great coach. You've been advocating him for 5 years. You say he's a great coach. You write these great articles about him. You said it was good that he got a contract extension. You own this one, Joe.
Yeah. So first of all, you're not at all dealing with what Caroline asked. But if you want to talk BS and lie, we can start picking apart your points. But to the question Caroline asked, I don't have a problem. I don't. But I'm going to stick with the same thing I say on other things. Like philosophically, what is the benefit of moving on from him now, of firing him now? I mean,
What's
I guess
the point of not?
Well, I mean, what do you mean? What do you mean the point of not? So now you have to have everybody else shuffle and deal with this because you fired your coach mid-season. I mean, if you're going to fire him, just fire him when the season's over. If you want to fire him now, go for it. I don't care. But, yeah, I think he's a great coach. I mean, last year Jared was crying and apologizing because they had this great run and he was SEC Coach of the Year. And
I
now
didn't apologize.
I was right all along, everybody. Oh, look at me.
I did not apologize about Jerry Stackhouse.
I
said Vanderbilt belonged in the NCAA tournament last year.
You loved him, and you loved that team. You were just gushing like a child. So that's fine. I mean, Stackhouse, I don't know what he's going to do next. I think he probably has to go back to the G League. I think he can coach basketball. I think he knows basketball. I think he can't recruit well enough to have good enough basketball teams, and obviously it's all falling apart this year. So maybe there's more to it than that. Maybe, it's deeper in the building. And I will say, if it's toxic in there and it's becoming unbearable, then that would be a reason to move on from him. But other than that, you play the season out and then you move on.
Okay. I think Jerry Stackhouse should be fired. And if I were Vanderbilt, I would fire him today. I mean, for starters, nobody likes to be, bad news. They don't like to be in the headlines and all of that, and I get it. But it's the week of the Super Bowl. People got other things to worry about. So I'd fire him today because I think that Candace Lee, I oftentimes do not believe that it makes a difference to scratch the anger of the fan base, to address the anxiety of, are we ever going to pull the plug on this? But sometimes I think as an owner of a team or an athletic director, I think sometimes there is a moment where it's like you as the chief of the operation have to put your hands up and say, no more. And you got to tell your fans, no more. Now, we're still going to stink for the rest of the year, but that's okay because no more. And I thought Amy Adams-Strunk had to do it when she fired Ken Wisenhunt in the middle of his second year because they could not continue on that way. And I think that's where we are with Jerry Stackhouse. And I will tell you this. There is a die-hard, true blue, anchoring down, long-time Memorial Vandy fan who has told me, and we all know him, or her, and they told me that they can't do any more of Stackhouse. And the idea of Stackhouse comes back, they're done with Vanderbilt, which I don't believe. And I don't think Stackhouse is coming back at the end of the year anyways. But that they're done. And I think that of what's left of this fan base, because it is, I mean, as much as I hope that Vandy does well, like it is dying, that fan base. That gym is dead. I think this is the opportunity after the way they lost the other night for Candace Lee to stand up and say, no mas. And I think what's happening to Vandy basketball right now is way worse than what was happening that COVID year to Vandy football when she got up with Derek Mason and said, no mas, and fired him. So I think she should fire Jerry Stackhouse today. And I think Vanderbilt
but that was still
fans.
after the season.
No, didn't they fire him? No, they fired him before that because the Tennessee game was coached by some schmo that I don't even know who it was.
What does it mean to just be done?
That's what I'm talking about.
Not a fan? You're just not a fan anymore?
I mean, I guess just not going to the games, not caring about Vandy, finding another team to
here's
root
the
for.
thing.
I don't know.
Okay, but look, first of all, I think most in-season firings, I can't think of many in college sports that haven't been scandal related, like Mel Tucker missed his head this year, right, or something like that. There aren't
Jimbo
many.
Fisher?
Fulmer was
Zach
that?
Arnett.
But I think it's more in pro sports. But beyond that, with the fan base, I don't disagree big picture that, they have butchered this program. And obviously a lot of people, I think, probably feel a little bit different about Kevin Stallings. Maybe not. I'm sure Jared wanted him fired too.
Oh,
but
Joe,
Jared wanted
it was
everybody fired.
legendary. I'm going to tell you right now, I got him fired. And I know he technically didn't get fired. He took the Pittsburgh job.
Everyone.
But I got him fired, and I have no regrets about getting Kevin Stallings run out of town.
Twice a day. There you go. Everybody fire everybody. But now people can look back at Kevin Stallings and say, well, 7 NCAA bids, that's not too bad in a tenure. But the thing is, so fire Jerry Stackhouse. Again, I'm fine. I don't have a problem with it. But you're not, like, the fans are going to be like, yay, and all of a sudden they're going to start showing up. It's going to be a dead, all-flat atmosphere the rest of this season. They're going to lose. They're going to have a terrible building. And then it's all about your hire and what kind of energy you can bring to the program with that hire. And if you win, if you figure it out and you bring people in, they will show up. And look, that gym was, and I know it was a lot of Tennessee fans. But that gym last year for the Tennessee win was fantastic. Every seat filled, and it was a great atmosphere. Bryce Drew had a game against Florida, and I know we're going back a few years, but incredible. As good an atmosphere as you'll find in college basketball.
See, that's the coach they shouldn't have fired. That's the coach they shouldn't have fired. And that was they should have never hired Malcolm Turner, and firing Bryce Drew was a big mistake, and everything Malcolm Turner did was bad. And Jerry Stackhouse is the last remnants of the horrendous Malcolm Turner era, and you know it.
0-18 in the SEC, losing Darius Garland. 4 other guys on that team are on NBA rosters. Absolutely absurd to go 0-18. Look, year 3 is year 3. It's early. It was a disaster. It was a completely lost team. And talk about the end of that season. Everybody, all the stuff you're saying right now, Jared, oh, my God, it's dead in there, this fan base, blah, blah, blah. It's years later now.
Year 2?
Yes.
Wasn't it year 2? It was year 2 for Bryce Drew, right?
No. He went to the tournament his first year. Year 2 was a big disappointment, but he was bringing in Garland. And then in his third year with Garland, they went 0-18 in the SEC with a bunch of other pros, Lee and Neesmith and all those guys. Matt, what's his name? Matt Ryan is in the NBA. There's no all that stuff. No excuse at all to not win at least 6-7 games in the SEC that year. A complete disaster.
He was there for 3 years.
Okay.
Nah, I'm on Bryce Drew's side. Plus, Bryce Drew's getting Grand Canyon to the tournament all the time now. He got more tournaments than Vanderbilt has since they fired him.
Well,
he's the A.J. Brown of Vandy basketball.
There's a take.
That is a take. Caroline, what's next?
I'm still trying to piece that one together a little bit. All right, Jared, you go first. So I heard Stephen A. Smith say that Kyle Shanahan is the biggest story of the Super Bowl, that if he doesn't win this one, then he'll start to become that coach that can always get you there but can't win it. Do you agree or disagree?
Boy, that is a take. I don't think it's the biggest story of the Super Bowl because I think the biggest story is, Mahomes is truly approaching all-time great status. Like, he is, when we talk about Brady and, in the last hour, I've talked at length about how the top 100 quarterbacks 4 years ago, I'm kicking out Marino and Favre, and I'm putting in Mahomes and Rodgers at this point. And, now I think the question is, where does Mahomes rank? If Mahomes gets his third, now we're talking about, he's probably – I know Montana has 4, but I think he might pass Montana if he wins this game. That being said, I do think that Kyle Shanahan is starting to get a little Bobby Cox in him, and it's like he could always get to the big one and then blows it. And even though he was an assistant coach when they blew that one in Atlanta, he still was a part of blowing it. And I think he and Dan Quinn are both, great partners at blowing things. But I do think it's a big story. I do think it's a big hump for Shanahan to get over. I mean, I don't think they should win because of their quarterback compared to the other quarterback, but I'm not going to say it's the biggest story. I think the biggest story is Mahomes and history and what it means if he gets his third.
Yeah, I'd probably agree. I might put in there, because quarterback is all we talk about in this league. I think the Mahomes, all-time great, the GOAT chase and all that stuff. But also I do think that this is the winner of this game. There's a big quarterback talking point to come out of it, right? It's another team. Because I don't think if San Francisco wins this game, I think Brock Purdy's really good. He's a very good quarterback. I think he's on whatever tier that is. I think he can be like a guy like Cousins and Goff and whoever else you want to, like a good quarterback. You give him good conditions and he will make plays for you, and that's fine. But if the Niners win, then I think this is another – basically it's almost like hope for the rest of the league. Like, see, you actually can win if you have – you got to be loaded, because the Niners still, I think, have the best roster. But if you do have a great team around a good quarterback, you can win it all. And so I think either way, in that way, it kind of pushes the quarterback discussion one way or the other. I think that's a big thing. As far as Shanahan, I mean, the Shanahan thing is a huge part of it, though. And I just think whether it's Sunday or at some point, he's going to have his Andy Reid moment, because that dogged Andy Reid for most of his career, frankly. And at some point, Kyle Shanahan's too good, I think, to not have his Andy Reid moment and actually win the thing, and then it'll change. But it will intensify on him for sure if they lose Sunday.
Caroline, who wins this week?
Yeah, I'm with you guys. No matter who wins, 49ers, Chiefs, the number one story is going to be the quarterback. And I think that those storylines absolutely will be brought up, of Kyle Shanahan winning the big one, but it's all about the quarterbacks. Now I'm with Joe on take the best player available. Like, if that's a tackle, great. If that's a receiver, great. If that's Brock Bowers, wonderful.
What if it's a guard?
Well, they already did that. They took care of guard already. Don't have to worry about guard. But I'm not married to a tackle. If they're married to a tackle and you don't find it a number 7th overall pick worthy tackle, trade back. But Joe, it's time. It is time to move on from Jerry Stackhouse.
Did I say it wasn't?
You said you'd be okay with it.
You'd be okay with it, and you wouldn't do it now.
I gotta be it's so important. All right, that's fine. That's fine. Predetermined.
That is not predetermined. You're going to say that every single week. Because I don't know what your take is now, Joe.
Our stances on things, and that's your determining factor for
I
a
did not know your stance on this.
Was predetermined. Oh, okay.
I figured you would change your mind about the coach's job security when they go 1-17 in conference play.
I just said I'm fine with him being fired. You know that I say about every single question that comes down to, let's fire a coach in season. Why? Tell me the benefit. If there's a benefit, if there's a pressing need, then do it. Otherwise, why? That's my stance. So it's fine.
I will ask. I do not know that is your stance, first and foremost.
Oh, I've said that a million times.
What is the benefit of waiting?
We're waiting for you,
it's
Joe.
Fine. Jared wins. Yeah, it does. I got nothing. It doesn't matter.
That is a genuine question that I am asking you, Joe.
What is the benefit of waiting? What is why do you have to do it now? I mean, you can just keep flipping the question back on. Why is it urgent now? The fans are not coming. They're not happy. They're not coming. Give them a new coach. If you can hire a new coach, then do that.
Can I add something to this on my own show? What I would say is that, we use this in SEC football all the time, where, like, Jimbo Fisher got fired, and then Mississippi State fired their coach that same day because it was like, well, we can't let A&M get a head start on us on the coaching search. And I would argue that if Vanderbilt were to fire Stackhouse, considering that Vanderbilt, there's a particular candidate that Vanderbilt is looking for, right? Like, Vanderbilt's not hiring Chris Beard, and we all know that. So, with there being a particular candidate Vanderbilt's looking for, and there being about a handful of other schools who are probably looking at the same kind of candidates as Vanderbilt would be, wouldn't it make sense for them to fire the coach and then get the head start on the coaching search for those guys that would fit Vanderbilt's mold to start reaching out with their agents about, would this be something that you'd be interested in?
I mean, you can pretty much do all the back channel stuff, even with him here as the coach, but sure.
Okay, thank you so much, guys.
Sounds good.
Great stuff. Jared versus Joe is presented by Pella Windows and Doors of Nashville. And 2 in a row. 2 in a row for the big guy. 615-737-1025, Stillman and Company. We got some new breaking Nick Saban news. We'll touch on that. 1025, 106 for the game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. As we were wrapping up Jared versus Joe, I went to ESPN.com. Here at the Super Bowl, it's like we're kind of isolated, right? Like it's just Super Bowl, Super Bowl, Super Bowl, Super Bowl, Super Bowl. And it's not like, the Vandy game last night, right? If I wasn't here, I probably would have spent more time yelling and screaming about Jerry Stackhouse and what's wrong, with Vandy and what they need to do to get it back and all that kind of stuff. But I looked at ESPN.com. Nick Saban is joining College Game Day as an analyst. ESPN says Nick Saban, who retired last month as the head coach of the Alabama Crimson Tide after 17 seasons, is ready to go back to work. Saban will primarily serve as an analyst on ESPN's College Game Day and will also lend his expertise across ESPN platforms to a variety of events, including the NFL Draft and SEC Media Days. Boy, I think he's going to be great. I think it's going to be weird to see Saban on TV knowing that he's going to be talking about coaches that he could go right back down on the sideline and do a better job then. Like right away. So, good for us, but wow. I got to tell you, I was a little surprised. And I know people had thought that he'd go to game day, and my guess is that they probably look at him as the eventual replacement for Lee Corso. That they probably think that Saban one day will eventually replace Lee Corso, and when Coach Corso rides off into the sunset. And look, I don't think Coach Corso should feel the need to do anything. Whatever he wants to do it for as long as you want. It feels like that's his life. They work him through after his stroke. They work him through the show. I think he does great. But man, Nick Saban to game day. And I just think about how Belichick doesn't have a job, and he'll probably end up in the media, and Saban's now in the media. And I think Floyd was a little embarrassed there at the end. Not that he didn't like doing the show, and he loved you guys, the fans. And he loved connecting. But just the fact that his guys were still coaching and he was in the media, and now it's like his guys are in the media. Coming up next, big random story today. Brock Bowers says he wants to be a Titan. So I caught up with him, and I wonder what that means. And I asked him. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Those are my guys. It's Valentine's season, and love is in the air with Hiller. Find your perfect match this month with Hiller and get a free UV light when you purchase select new HVAC systems. And get a free whole home surge protection when you buy a new whole home generator. Get 50% off of a descaler when you buy a new tankless water heater, and you'll never be more in love with your home. Find your perfect match at happyhiller.com. Hiller's a perfect match for me. They're actually coming out to my home on Monday. That's right. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. That's Hiller. Call the Happy Face Truck today. Company live from Radio Row 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Freaking great show today. Thanks to Warren Moon, who was on the program, Field Yates from ESPN, who was on the program. We had an absolutely top-down, just freaking loaded show. So, again, between Mad Dog Russo and Solomon Wilcots and Rich Gannon and all of the Thomas Dimitroff and all the guys we've had, so far that have been here some way, somehow. Okay, so I do want to get to this because this made waves on social media today. We've already touched on this, but Brock Bowers went on Pro Football Talk. And, in fact, Pro Football Talk is directly in front of me about, 200 feet in front of me. I can look at it right now. And as he went on Pro Football Talk, he was asked a question. I don't even know if this interview has aired yet. Normally I think they tape the stuff for the next day. So it may not have actually aired yet. But Chris Sims tweeted out that he went on their show, and when he went on their show, that he asked Brock Bowers, the tight end from Georgia, who yesterday, you guys know I was gushing about, and he said, is there any team you'd want to play for? And he said the Titans. And normally, with these guys usually kind of avoid saying anything one way or another. But he came out and said the Titans. And all of a sudden, Twitter went nuts. So I literally stalked this man like a hawk. I was looking around. I have no idea what the guy looks like. So I Googled, and I'm like, he's somewhere around here on Radio Row. And I saw him in a back corner with Fox Sports Radio doing something. And I went to his guys, and I said, look, I know I'm not on the schedule because why the hell would I want to talk to Brock Bowers, before he says something like that? So I know I'm not on the schedule, but he said, that he wants to play for the Titans. So can I grab him? So I got Brock Bowers. I sit there with him in between interviews. I was able to talk to Brock Bowers and follow up on whether or not a potential Titans target with the 7th overall pick. Talk about why he wants to play for the Titans. Here at Radio Row, quick one here with Brock Bowers, Georgia tight end. So you just made waves in Nashville by going on Pro Football Talk and saying you want to play for the Titans. So why exactly you want to play for the Titans?
I think it'd be cool. I've been up there a couple times to Tennessee, and I kind of would love to stay in the Southeast. So yeah.
So is there anything when it comes to the tight end position, the two best tight ends in the NFL are playing this week because, it's tight end doesn't look as normally a premium position, but you don't seem to play like a normal tight end, do you?
I feel like Georgia used me a little differently here and there. They put me in the backfield, flexed me out wide. Just kind of used me wherever, and I thought that was a ton of fun. So I think I might be a little different maybe.
What do you know about Will Levis?
Will Levis, we played him. I think my freshman year or sophomore year? I think he was just there my freshman year. But yeah, he's been balling.
So is there any other teams other than the Titans that you're thinking about?
Just kind of whoever wants me, and it's a job, and you're getting to go somewhere and do a job. So,
tell me about Auto Trader.
Yeah, they're gonna help me get a car when I first get to the league and get my first paycheck. So,
what kind of car?
Hopefully, like a Ford F-250 diesel. So, I like trucks. I have a truck right now, but would like a little upgrade, and they're gonna help make that process easy.
All right, thanks, Brock.
Thank you.
So there you go. And again, not a lot of depth there. Just I like the Southeast. And so it does make me think maybe there's going to be some guys that would be really, really excited about playing for the Titans, and just because Nashville and everything else. We talk about that when it comes to hockey and guys wanting to play there. You know what would have been funny? What would have been funny is if you looked at me and said, dude, no state income tax? And the real estate market there is booming. And so if I get in now in 5 years, a home that I buy for $1 million might be worth, $1.8 million or something like that. That would have been pretty funny. So there you go. Again, it's kind of a headline grabber. He wants to play for the Titans, but you go in depth with it. There you go. That's going to do it for us. Live from Radio Row here. Tomorrow we have got a loaded show as of right now. We will have the TD Power Hour, as we always do. And then we may have, there's one that I'm not sure we're going to get, so I don't want to say it. But that could be a big one. And then a second one, a big one I'm pretty sure we're going to get tomorrow as well at, I would assume, around 4:30 tomorrow. So, again, be on the lookout for that. Stillman and Company, again, live from Radio Row, right here, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. We will see you all tomorrow.